We have a quorum of 4 members. We are recording, and I am going to start this meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. This is the April 25th meeting of the Nantucket Concom. We're meeting at 4 o'clock today, not 5. Thanks everybody for dealing with the schedule change. And we no longer have to read the remote meeting script, just a couple of highlights. This is going to be an entirely remote meeting. There will be public comment at certain times of the agenda. We're going to be using the Town of Nantucket's newly established protocols for public comment. And please speak through the chair and ask questions through the chair. In regards to that, our chair, Ian Golding, is not going to be able to attend this meeting. So I, as the vice chair, will be chairing the meeting. We'll start our meeting, or actually before we start our meeting, we will get into continuances on the agenda. I've been told that item number 6 under notice of intent, Sconset Beach Preservation Fund, 59 to 83 Baxter Road, which is SE 48 3759, would like a continuance, but I was not told of a date of that continuance. We do need to continue that hearing to a date certain. So if a representative from that project could speak up and suggest a date, we would appreciate that.
Chip Nyland here, Mr. Chairman. I was the one who made that request. We were asking that it be continued until a decision is made on the geotube. So perhaps we could just pick a date in June, whenever your meetings are in June, if you want to go to a date certain.
Jeff, could you chime in, please?
Yeah, I would suggest continuing that till June the 6th.
Is that acceptable with you, Chip?
That would be fine.
Okay, that will be continued until June 6th. And then our only other continuance is under amended orders of condition, Island Harbor Farm LLC at 6 New Whale Street, SE 48 3435. That is continued until May 9th. And with that, we will start our meeting with public comment for items not being heard on the agenda today. Do we have any
Excuse me,
public
Mr.
comment?
Chairman. One of your past commissioners called me in the middle of what you were saying. Which is the one that Chip is extending?
It is 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SE 48 3759.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Public comment. I see Burton Balkind. Could somebody bring him over, please? Yes, yes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Acting Chairman. I am curious. Last mentioned for the continuance from Baxter Road, is that involving the core or the geotubes? I'm just trying to understand, or with the continuance, which one's the continuance?
This is the project for the Coar terraces.
Okay. I wanted to, if that's the case, we're not going to be discussing at this meeting, so I would like to make a public comment on that, if that's possible.
Yes, please.
I submitted to the Natural Resources Department pictures of Great Point East Beach littered with core. I just wanted that to go into the record, and when it does come up from discussion, I would ask the commissioners, please consider a robust monitoring element of the core. I mean, I understand the core, it does break down over time, but if you've seen the pictures, and they're available from the town I sent to the town, it has clumped all branches and debris, and it kind of binds them into these big blobs of debris that are worse than normal out there right now. So I just wanted to make that comment. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Spruce. The town of Nantucket has informed us that we shouldn't be really having discussions about items related to public comment, except in extenuating circumstances. So if you have submissions or any information related to that, you can send it to the Natural Resources Department staff. Meredith Moldenhauer, do you have a public comment for items not on the agenda?
I just have a public comment that I, on behalf of SBPF today, did go to the area that Spruce was referencing. My husband and I did pick up a trash bucket full of Quar Terrace debris, and we posted that. But I just wanted to say that we did respond to that, and I did go out today and clean up some of that. Thank you.
Thank you for doing your part to keep Nantucket's beaches clean, and any additional items on this discussion can be sent into the staff. Anything else? I don't believe so. So we will turn to the next item on our agenda, which is public hearing, notices of intent. We'll start with Sconset Beach Preservation Fund, 41 through 119 Baxter Road. That's SE 48 37 36. And before we get started, we do have a full meeting agenda today. I know generally we try to hold these discussions on separate special meetings. So I am going to, in my authority as chair, limit this discussion to 1 hour. And I'll ask for everyone's agreement on that. And once that 1 hour is concluded, we'll also allow another 5-minute discussion on scheduling additional hearings that are needed to bring this item to a close. Jeff or Will, is there anything that you would like to add in here?
Sure. No, I think that's fine. And just to be brief, I think the intention of tonight was to provide the applicant an opportunity to respond to all of the public comment and public information that was taken in at the last hearing. And we recommend hearing from them. I know I believe they have a really short, just a few slide information to provide commentary on some of those points.
Great, thank you. Joe, do you have a comment before we get started or a question? You're muted. You have to unmute, Joe. All right. Joe, you're on mute.
I informed Chairman Gold 2 weeks ago that I would be here for the first part of the meeting, but not any of the rest of the meeting. I have a conflict which forces me to leave after that 1 hour.
Thank you for letting us know. And luckily we do have a quorum, so should be okay. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if I missed the roll call. I just wanted to register the fact that I'm here. If a little.
I am sorry. We did not take the roll call. We should take the roll call. So before we get started in earnest here, let's do a roll call of members. Tim Brain.
Here.
Mark Beal.
Here.
Bill Plandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
And Seth Engelborg here. Staff, when I call your name, Jeff Carlson.
Here.
Will Delorba.
Here.
Thank you. And the anticipated speakers, we will acknowledge them as it is their time to speak. So getting back to our agenda item, who would like to start the discussion for SBPF?
That will be me, Mr. Chairman. Chip Nyland, Lynch D. Simona Nyland, representing the applicant SBPF. And thank you very much for giving us this hour. I think that was the agreement when one of the members agreed that we could go early. That's what we were anticipating, trying to get that done within an hour. We certainly won't go beyond that. Do we have, I think we have some slides, if we could put up. The purpose, as I think the members have indicated, is for us just to briefly go over a number of items that were raised either by public comment or a couple of questions that were raised by the commission members as well. So we're going to just go through an overview, then we were going to talk about the alternatives, the Quar Terrace, and talk about sand sourcing, and then finish off by talking about imminent danger. And we think that we can take care of that in a fairly quick period of time. So, Nicole, are you sharing? I don't see any.
Yes, I have it ready to go. Just wanted to check that I have permission to share.
Yeah, I think that's up to Jeff, right?
Nope, you should have permission to share.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so we can go to the next. You're gonna go to the next one then, Nicole?
Yep, sorry, little technical difficulty here. Zoom.
Okay.
We'll do this for now.
All right. So in terms of the overview, just we think we're on the home stretch here, members of the commission. We've had, this is our fourth hearing. Just to let you know, this is, been pretty much like a conventional filing, except that it was a little bit more complicated. So we spent time in the first session walking you through what the project was, the purpose, the alternatives that we had looked at, and how we believe that it meets the performance standards. We also, in the second session, we provided a little bit more technical. The first session was really at 10,000 feet. The second session, we went into more technical analysis in terms of how the pilot project, we believe, had demonstrated that there were no adverse impacts downstream or down gradient. We walked through the proposed operation and maintenance program that we are proposing, as well as monitoring. We walked through the public benefits, talked about the failure criteria, and then again, walked through why we believe the project meets the regulatory compliance performance standards for work on a coastal bank with this coastal engineering structure. Then at the third session, we updated our discussion of the NOI, which, as you know, is 300 pages long. We talked about those sites, the infrastructure, as well as the structures on Baxter Road that are eligible for protection under the bylaw, as well as under the Wetlands Act. We addressed the sand-covered beach in terms of how much of the beach is occupied by the geotubes. And we then spent some time on mitigation as well as reporting requirements. So, we believe that we have spent a long time. We do appreciate very much that the commission has given us time, including separate sessions from your normal agenda, and we do appreciate that. And I think that now that's why we believe we're coming to a close. At the last session, there were public comments that were offered, and at the conclusion, we said, well, we would like to have an opportunity just to reply briefly. And so where we see that we're going to go to, and let's go to the next slide, Nicole. So as I said, tonight, what we are looking to do is, or this afternoon, excuse me, briefly talk again about the alternatives analysis that I believe, Mr. Chairman, you raised a question, and other members, in terms of how deep we had gone into alternatives. To talk again about the Quar alternative, briefly touch on sand sourcing, imminent danger, and then I think, as you had indicated, figure out what meetings we have left so we can complete this review. Next session. So before I turn this over to Dwight to talk about the alternatives analysis, I just wanted to put this a little bit into context. As you know, the bylaw, as well as the Wetlands Act, regulate resource areas differently. Alternatives that you look at in terms of the riverfront area are different than those for coastal dunes or salt marsh or coastal bank. So when we look at the alternatives for coastal bank, we're looking at what the project purpose is, which is to protect the coastal bank. And unlike some other resource areas, the bylaw, as well as the Wetlands Act, makes a special dispensation for structures behind coastal banks. While, as you know, coastal dunes don't have a similar protection. You can't put coastal engineering structures in front of coastal dunes. Can't do that in front of salt marsh, and you can't fill bordering vegetated wetlands to put in, these types of structures. So what we start with is the project purpose, which is to protect the coastal bank and the structures that are behind it. And I think that that's very important because when we were looking at those alternatives, that's what we keep in mind. And as we're going to talk about later with the coastal terraces, we don't believe that the coastal terrace has a similar project purpose that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dwight Dunk, who was involved with most of these alternatives. And then after he speaks, I think we also have Kate Edwards from Arcadis, who will talk about how Arcadis looked at those alternatives. So can I turn it over to you, Dwight? And I think Dwight sent me a note that says his camera wasn't working, so he may just be speaking.
Yeah, I do see him on, and I do hear you, Dwight, so please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think I wore out my camera today. But thank you, yes. And, as Chip mentioned, the project purpose here is to improve the capacity of this coastal bank to provide storm damage prevention and flood control, and which is the presumed significant interests or values of the coastal bank, and where this is also a sediment source, making sure that the project design provides compensatory sand or sediment to the littoral drift system for downdrift beaches, dunes. And we don't have a barrier beaches here, but so that's the project purpose, and the performance standards that were designed to meet the alternatives, and the project were designed to meet that. And as Commissioner Engelborg mentioned, at the last hearing, we provided this project is a little different in that SBPF has been looking at measures to try to protect the coastal bank here, Sconset Bluff, and to improve the capacity of this bluff to provide those interests. So what's interesting, unlike other projects, here we have various measures that have been tried in practice and implemented, as well as ones that have been pursued. So I've kind of calling those theories. So there's a mix of practice and theory in this alternatives analysis that was presented or summarized in the notice of intent. And what our approach is going to be to flesh out the alternatives analysis for the record. We don't have this for today, but we will provide it to the commission, is to prepare essentially a matrix of these projects that make up this alternatives analysis, that have either been implemented and determined not to function or provide that protection, or that were pursued and then not approved and therefore deemed not feasible. And with that matrix, then also provide links to the documents that support those conclusions, so that we can flesh out that alternatives analysis for the record, as opposed to just the short bullet list of all these projects that have been pursued. And hopefully that will be acceptable to the commission as providing a more robust alternatives analysis. Next slide, please. And just to summarize the things that have been evaluated, or the alternatives have been evaluated in terms of managed retreat. 18 of the homes, there are currently 27 along the eastern side of Baxter Road, have been moved either off the lot or moved as far landward as possible on the lot. So there has been managed retreat practice along Baxter Road. There was the beach dewatering. There was an order of conditions issued for that. That was pursued for many years and determined not to be an effective measure. The Coir reinforced coastal terraces, Coir envelopes, whatever we want to, whatever term you want to use, have been pursued. They've been in place for nearly 20 years for portions of the bluff, and they've been determined not to be really up to the task for this high wave energy environment, but we can document that. The drainage wells, similar to the beach nourishment, those drainage wells provided as part of the current pilot project. The beach nourishment in large sacrificial dunes, the beach nourishment was advanced through the MEPA process to the draft DIR, and through the various comments in public comment and agency comments. That project was not advanced further because it was deemed not to be a feasible pursuit. The marine mattresses and gabions and the revetment, those were proposed, and basically those efforts were then led to the geotube as the compromise, rather than having either the gabions or a stone revetment be placed along the base or the toe of the coastal bluff. The geotubes were selected as the compromise to providing the same level of protection, but without introducing non-native type material, because as we look out here, we don't have large Volkswagen sized boulders out here. So, having a stone revetment doesn't match what's out there. And then living shorelines, we looked at that through the working group. And basically when we look along here, a living shoreline, they're not present along here because of the high wave energy environment. And I think in terms of groins and breakwaters, this is where I would like to pass it on to Kate, because the Arcadis looked at a number of alternatives in their alternatives assessment for the Baxter Road for Sconset Bluff. I know I don't recall us looking at groins and breakwaters so much, but when we had looked at it kind of in very conceptual basis, the depth of water, the beach profile here, the water gets very deep quite quickly. So those types of structures on a conceptual basis were not pursued to be feasible, but I know Arcadis looked at some more alternatives as part of their work for the town, on behalf of the town here. So these measures, I was going to provide the documents that support the conclusions that we came to, if that's good with the commission.
Yes, and just before you pass it to Kate, I am aware that Michael Mizzarelli has joined us. Mike, do you know the time at which you joined?
4:17.
Thank you. We will record that for the minutes.
Thank you. Apologies for being late, everybody.
That's fine. Dwight, I think what the process you laid out makes sense. And Kate, you're welcome to go up next.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, there's some static, but we can sort of hear you.
All right, I'll try and see if I can. My internet doesn't seem to be great, but yell at me if you can't hear it. We looked at alternatives analysis in 2021 as
Why
part
don't we change the, excuse me, Kate, there we go. We just want to get you on the right slide.
Oh, okay. As part of the Baxter Road long-term planning project, the goal was really to compare alternatives and develop a concept plan for moving forward based on feasibility analysis and community engagement. The challenge was finding a solution that's supported throughout the community. The alternatives analysis was performed from an engineering and coastal process perspective, And what we found was bluff protection cannot be achieved without toe stabilization. So alternatives that provide bluff protection have to include the toe stabilization component. So we explored other forms of innovative and alternative protection methods, but some didn't actually provide that toe stabilization. They may help with other processes. We also found that, removal of the current system and replacement with some other form of toe stabilization was likely to have environmental and cost impacts. So I'm just going to kind of run through a quick list of the ones we looked at and why they were determined to be feasible or not feasible. But the considerations really were final alternatives that are in that report and advanced further, considered stakeholder input, regulatory considerations, and technical effectiveness for bluff protection. So groins would not provide direct toe protection for a coastal bluff. They can provide additional beach width, given the potential to impact longshore sediment transport, and limited ability to reduce the bluff erosion. Those were not advanced or found to be feasible for this goal. The nearshore breakwaters are effective in helping to reduce beach erosion and build the beach, but they have limited ability to prevent bluff erosion. And as Dwight mentioned, in order to reduce waves during storm surge conditions, they have to extend above the normal high water line. The water gets really deep really fast, likely to be very costly in this scenario. Nearshore berm or a sand engine like you see in the Netherlands, those help build the beach by slowing longshore transport and reducing normal non-storm waves. They perform a similar function to offshore breakwaters, but you would need significant sand, and that was a concern environmentally because of the cobble bottom. Beach nourishment or dunes, they have some limitation to preventing bluff erosion. During larger storm surge events, the storm surge could be higher than the beach elevation, and then the waves overtop that and erode the bluff anyway. So they can be used to protect a bluff toe. In this instance, the sand isn't going to stand up on its own. So at that same slope to provide you with that high level of effectiveness. So again, significant sand volume, a concern there for the cobble bottom. In terms of toe protection, as Dwight mentioned, we also looked at things like seawalls, engineered dunes that have something in them that's sort of harder than even the geotubes, harder armoring scenarios, but at the end of the day, those weren't stakeholder supported by the town or others. Just knew that through the community engagement process, those were a no-go. So geotubes were the less hardened structure. They exist today and they had some community support. And then the core rolls, we also looked at those. Given the type of effectiveness that many of the stakeholders were looking to achieve in terms of protection of the bluff and the road and the infrastructure above it, those weren't really deemed to be as effective. They weren't going to provide the same level of protection. And so that's why we kind of moved into these four or five alternatives that said, you could either have no change in the project and just operate and maintain how you are. You can move to adaptive dune nourishment with the existing system to alleviate some of the compliance issues, the sand sourcing, things like that. You can expand the existing system alongshore. That would provide additional protection and was deemed to be a possible effective protection scenario. And then there were plans in the short, near, and long term, which could include removal and retreat. And then you could add nearshore breakwaters with the existing system to help build back that beach and kind of help with the beach part of it, but those don't provide tow protection. You would still need the existing system with them. So that's kind of how we landed on those alternatives. But we did in the background look at all those others, and that process is laid out in the memo that's posted on the Baxter Road long-term planning site.
Well, thank you, Kate. I'm sorry that the static detracted from her presentation. But I would say, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, you were absolutely right that when you said that, there's only a page and a half of the alternatives, but we wanted to assure you that this, we didn't arrive at this in a vacuum, that there was considerable discussion. There's a lot of material out there. This is not something that, that was result oriented, that we started with geotubes and then eliminated the others. So it was a very, I guess, sometimes painstaking process that went through. It was inclusive. There were shareholders, stakeholders that went through this. It was looked at from a variety of angles, including technically as well as other aspects that they were taking a look in terms of protecting public benefits as well as the protection of the bluff. So, what we're going to do is put an index together so we can, include in the record all of the material that supports what these positions are. And while there are only a few bullets, I will tell you that the majority of the time was spent coming up with these alternatives and going through them one at a time. And we want to make sure that the commission understands that this wasn't something that we arrived at after a very short period of time. So thank you very much, Kate. And if before we go on to the core, if you had any other questions with respect to the alternatives, Mr. Chair, members, we could do that now, and then we could go on to the next topic.
Do any commissioners have questions or comments related to the alternatives presented here? Okay, I have a couple questions. My first question is for Kate. So my understanding of the Arcadis process was that it considered stakeholder feedback and looked at some technical options, but didn't advance any of the options from an engineering perspective. Is that true?
We did not advance them in terms of design. The concepts laid out are more to give a plan of over time what feasible alternatives there were to either protect the bluff or retreat or some combination of both. Those engineering concepts were taken into consideration technically for, the along-shore transport, cross-shore transport, sediment, and those sorts of things were all in the background. There's some mind maps in the memo that really kind of lay out our thinking, but we didn't advance anything to design.
Thank you. And on that note, I'm wondering if any thought has been given towards, instead of applying kind of one alternative at once here, if any thought has been given to having multiple solutions do separate things on the beach. Like, I guess some of the things that you reference on the slide would be that having, let's say, like existing system with nearshore breakwaters, or adaptive dune nourishment with existing system. But a lot of the comments that have come in from the public and from some of the commissioners are that, we understand the reason for the project as proposed to protect the bank. We understand that that's the reason why geotubes are being applied for. But it's important to understand that, we can't think of each resource area in a vacuum. This project encompasses many resource areas, but in particular, I think the most relevant are the coastal bank and coastal beach. And if you look at the performance standards and the protected interest for the coastal beach, and if you look at them for coastal bank, the language of those two are actually sometimes in direct conflict with each other. You know, in Coastal Bank, it says we should be doing things to minimize erosion of the bank. And in Coastal Beach, it says we should be doing things to allow the natural erosional and depositional systems to occur. So I'm just wondering if there is some compromise where activities could be done to protect the toe and to build up the beach so that we're not having unanticipated impacts to either resource area.
Well, I'm not sure that they're mutually exclusive because we clearly are having, no matter what happens here, we all know that that beach is going to erode. But if, I don't know if that's something Dwight or Gordon want to key in on to discuss that.
Well, yeah, I'm just opening up the beach performance standards. The obviously the coastal bank only allows a CES to protect pre-78 buildings under the Wetlands Protection Act, structures and infrastructure, as well as buildings in the bylaw. And a CES on a beach is only allowed when it's under the Wetlands Protection Act when it's meets the performance standards for 1030 subsection 3, which is for a pre-78 structure. So there is some interplay between the beach and the dune, beach and the bank requirements and performance standards here. So it's one of those situations where we look at both of those together and we evaluated the compliance with the performance standards for both beach and bank in the notice of intent, and we can reevaluate that just to again demonstrate that we meet the performance standards for both of the resource areas for the project as proposed. And in terms of looking at different types of protection measures, the project as proposed with the phasing and the measures that are here that are proposed, we obviously have the geotubes in phase 1, as well as Coyer Terrace with a sand template on the Coyer Terrace for I forget exactly which reach is right now. I think reach 4. And then when we go to phase 5, we would phase 2, we would include a dune nourishment for reach 5. So we have looked at some different marrying up the different alternatives of toe protection. The Coyer terraces, as we've seen for the 20 years, have not proven to be as effective of protecting the toe from erosion and scour. And therefore, we still continue to see coastal bank erosion, even with those measures in place. So, we've looked at a couple of measures here by reach. And in terms of one of the prior question, I think we can work with Arcadis and or Baird. And the alternate you asked about an engineering analysis. I don't think we need to necessarily do an engineering analysis, but if we just look at the bathymetry and then the overall dimensions for breakwater, we would see that we have a very large offshore structure than altering land under the ocean. When we look at those things conceptually, just some concept drawings I think can play out in the challenges with some of those other measures that Arcadis determined were not feasible through the mind mapping and just looking at it on a conceptual level.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think the more information available to the commission in terms of drawings or engineering or context will better inform this commission to permit the project as necessary. And I understand it's the opinion of the applicants that, like, for instance, a Tor Terrace alone can't provide the appropriate tow protection. But if there could be a matrix laid out where, all the alternatives that protect the tow are in one section, all the alternatives that build at the beach are in one section, and look at if any of those interact to together achieve the type of protection that would be also achieved by something like a GO2. But I know we're limited on time, so that
Sure.
I'll let the applicants look at that offline.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think next we're going to go on to the Quar Terrace, which was an alternative that has been used in some portions, but we've considered it to be I guess subpar in terms of being able to protect the tow. I think that, Dwight, I'm going to turn to you and to Gordon, right?
Sure. And I could just briefly, discuss this and then hand it over to Gordon for a little more detail and context, because I know he's looked at this alternative a little more closely. Discussed, several times, whether tonight and through this process, there has been Coyer Terrace along this reach, and actually the initial notices of intent included basically Coyer Terraces from 119 all the way down to 59. The subsequent ones reduced those areas just to like 85 to 59, and basically they've been in place from 83 or 81 down to 59. And they've been in place for nearly 20 years. We see that they provide some level of protection in terms of helping to reduce the rate of erosion, but we still see the block failure, the slope failure, the erosion of the bluff. We still see some retreat of the top of the coastal bank, and in this high intensity environment, those alone do not appear to, as Chip mentioned, they're subpar as compared to a more robust feature of such as the geotubes. And in terms of looking at this proposal and relative to the 22 yards in front of the above the Coyer, I think Dr. Kreibel also mentioned that, should that get eroded, it does not provide the same level of protection that the geotubes provide. And since the project purpose is to stabilize the bank, to protect the homes, protect the road, we're trying to make sure that the tow does not get eroded. That telegraphs that erosion and retreat up the bank. But Gordon, if you can expand upon what I've said about that, that'd be great.
Certainly, Dwight. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having me here tonight. Essentially, what we're facing is any loss of the bank is a one-way loss. By definition, coastal bank is a glacial feature. Coastal beach is a feature that will both accrete and erode. So if we lose the coastal bank, it is not coming back. And as a result, the bluff recedes, and we lose infrastructure at the top of the coastal bank. So when we developed the design, we are specifically looking to avoid the erosion of the coastal bank. When we looked at this back in 2006, we came up with an estimate of about 80 cubic yards per linear foot would be required to prevent erosion of the coastal bank. And so when we then moved forward with a geotextile tube solution, we understood that we would have to do a combination, as Mr. Engelberg pointed out, that you are in these scenarios looking at a combination of fill and some type of structural solution, all the way from coir rolls to the geotextile tubes to revetment, essentially a seawall. So we looked at those and essentially came back to the conclusion that the geotextile tube does provide that last line of defense. We understand that we have to continue to feed sand into the system to offset the loss offset what material would be coming in from the coastal bank should it erode. So essentially that was the basis for the design. And when we look specifically at Dr. Prebel's alternative, which I very much appreciate where he's coming from, the concern is that it's just insufficient to meet the potential erosional stress that will occur during a very large storm event.
Okay.
Gordon, I
Mr.
think
Chair,
you're
if
on, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'll leave it there unless there are additional questions or clarifications I can provide.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, Chip, do you want to pick back up?
We're almost finished there. Could you go to the next slide? I think so we have the two sand sourcing. I think we just, by the way, there was a very interesting article that somebody sent us we chased down in Scientific American that after drugs and human trafficking, that sand trafficking comes next. So we're not trafficking. I just want to assure the commission that we're not dealing with the people that are trafficking the sand. So we do have sufficient supply. I think that I think that was an issue as I read through from the earlier approval in terms of meeting the size and doing a sieve analysis to make sure that we were providing compatible sediments. I don't think that that's been an issue. We primarily have had on-island sources and are developing off-island sources. We do have an institutional check because, as Dwight indicated, our phase 2 with the reaches that are with the quad terraces, we are not going to go to geotubes until we have a long-term source for purposes of phase 2. And the final note that we wanted to assure the commission with respect to what happened with the revocation of the order of conditions, it was not because we ran out of sand. It was because we had plenty of sand. As a matter of fact, we believed that we had met the requirements for the pilot project and thought that there was actually too much sand. So I want to assure the commission that the sand source is not an issue for us. Okay, that next one is.
May I just comment one piece on that, Chip? In commission members, in terms of the pilot project and the annual reporting that has been provided with the last survey and data that we have before the revocation order was issued, that was sand placed on the template through the sand year of 2022, so March 31 of 2022, where the full complement of 22 cubic yards per linear foot was placed. I know I might sound like a broken record for some of the commission members who have been on the commission for a while, but I just want to reiterate that for the pilot project, that reach of the bluff was demonstrated to contribute 12 cubic yards per linear foot. And the order of conditions required that there be 22 cubic yards of sand placed on the template. That's on the template, the on-site stockpile per year. And the purpose of that template is to compensate for the bluff not eroding. And the sand, as designed, when the front of the template erodes, sand is then within a week bulldozers come down and push sand off the top and recover those exposed geotubes. And through the data that we have through June of 2022, the pilot project had been contributing just shy of 14 cubic yards per linear foot. So it had been compensating for the geotubes being in place and preventing the bluff from eroding, which was the project purpose, but it also met the requirement of being a sediment source for the littoral drift system that was equal to or slightly greater than the bluff. So the 22 cubic yards was to be placed onto the template, onto the stockpile. That number was not always met, but the number going to littoral drift system was always met. And I just wanted to, for commission members who are new to some of this project, just to let them understand the kind of the difference between the contribution requirement and the stockpile requirement.
Dwight, that's a great point, and I was probably rushing a little too fast because that's, a very critical point. One of the members suggested that with our existing program that you'll be sand police, that if we just had the sand without the geotubes on, then no one would have to worry about the how the sand was affected by the storm water. So, and what we've suggested here, as Dwight's laid out, with having the sand on top of the geotubes and then having it recovered after the storms, with monitoring, we can assure the commission that they won't have to be the sand police, that we will inform them when that work has taken place, because that's the significant difference between the geotube and the quar terrace. That's very important. So, Dwight, thank you for. I don't think it can be said enough times. So thank you for that. What's my next? I think I have another slide left. Yeah. This is a question, as Mr. Chair, that's near and dear to your heart, because as we're well aware, the way that the regulations are written under the bylaw are to approach infrastructure built prior to 1978 and protecting them from imminent danger. So imminent danger was not defined in the bylaw. I think that's probably a wise decision. I think if we were sitting around deciding whether or not we were going to define imminent danger, we would probably do the same thing that the architects did, which is to leave it to the individual commission members and the applicants, because every coastal bank is different than the other, and it's probably important that they did leave you with that discretion to determine what imminent danger is. Obviously, it's something that we are forecasting, it's threatening, and that you have an ability to respond to. That's why we don't believe that the linear number works, and that's why we used what we took was the two storm events for that purpose. Nantucket seems to be a hallmark where if you don't like the first storm, don't worry, because there's another one that's following after it, and therefore, we aren't in a position to be able to protect that bank if we don't act in advance. And so that's why we consider it to be an imminent danger. And that's why we've identified these areas for, in terms of the infrastructure as well as for the structures. I will say that, and I know that we're spending far more time on the bylaw because we believe that it is more stringent in instances than the state act. But the DEP did look at the Nantucket, looked long and hard at the infrastructure and the structures. And when they approved the order of conditions, the superseding order, they did adopt this interpretation when they issued their approvals. I believe that it's consistent with the bylaw, because I believe that imminent danger isn't today or tomorrow. It's something that we're forecasting, and we need to prepare now in order to protect that bank. Do I have anything else left, Nicole? Or are we to the end?
I think I'm just going to make one quick comment on the imminent danger, Chip.
Go ahead,
having, come up and looked at the properties and looked at the different property owners. They're obviously subject to the NOI. In February, 83 Baxter had, lost a portion of their fence over because the bluff was eroding. When I went back over yesterday, a large majority of the entire back area of their property has been lost. At least, 5 feet at the top, not just the toe, has been lost. 77 Baxter, which had multiple quar terraces at its toe this winter, lost 13 to 15 feet. Clearly showing that there is imminent harm and danger here based on the wave action, and also showing that the quar terraces are insufficient to deal with this area. The area by the geotube obviously has been protected. And as Gordon Thompson, our expert in the field, mentioned earlier tonight, this is one way. We're never going to get any of that back. Once it's lost forever. Part of why I'm just making this point and wanting to emphasize it is that obviously there's if there's no really major storms this winter, there's a lot of little small storms, and as Gordon and Dwight have identified, and as Chip outlined here on the slide, if this is lost, it's lost forever. And the geotubes, are the alternative that, have been analyzed by our consultants and by the experts to be able to both protect the toe, stabilize the toe, and then protect the bluff and everything on top. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. So I think where we are at this stage, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we do owe you the compendium of the alternatives that we will provide to you. We will take a look at whether or not there is any other way to look at, I don't want to call it mixing and matching, but if there's any different phasing that would make sense and provide the protection of the bank, that we would provide that. I mean, where we believe that we are is we've presented significant information, which I believe supports our position that we meet the performance standard and that the work that we are performing, it will protect the coastal bank and the structures and the infrastructure as is contemplated and directly written in the regulations. We haven't heard back from the third-party reviewer. My view is that we probably have 2 meetings left. One would be for the third-party review to present to the commission for us to respond, and then a final meeting to conclude and answer any questions that remain. So I think that would be helpful for us because we do have a few minutes left. We did make it under an hour. There are other questions that you would like us to address or otherwise that we'll be waiting for the third-party reviewer, and maybe you could tell us what the status is of that peer review.
Yeah, thank you. Before we get to that, I just want to give the commissioners a chance to talk specifically either about the sand sourcing or the imminent danger, because we didn't really have time to discuss that. So if any commissioners have comments specifically related to that, please do so now. Mark?
Yes, thank you, Seth. Mr. Nyland, you were quoting my comments from last meeting about the sand police, and I'm not going to dwell on the past of you say you've put, Dwight is implying you put too much sand on, and we've had very strong opinions to the contrary, that what is quite a bit behind in sand. But my point is that I'm concerned that once you have the geotubes in place, they are in essence hard armoring, and they, as has been shown by the last few years with virtually no sand until recently, the hard armoring works. It seems to be holding the bank in place without any sacrificial sand. And so my concern is, what incentive will the applicant have to provide sand? Enforcement order notwithstanding, the penalties are chump change. in exchange, in comparison to the cost of thousands and thousands of cubic yards of sand. And it'll be millions and millions of dollars annual expense versus minor enforcement orders from the Conservation Commission. And we know the hassle we've gone through on the removal order. It took us years to get that organized. So my concern is, how can we sleep nights knowing that you will provide the sacrificial sand, which to me is the key element of this project, because you'll be in essence hard armoring the bank. And if we approve it, that will be sufficient to protect the bank. Not the best solution in terms of the beach, but I'm just concerned that we won't have a guarantee. And I know there's no guarantees in life, but this is I want to try and write it in the order of conditions that we will have sand there. And if not, there's got to be some way that the town, i.e. Conservation Commission, will provide it to make sure that the geotubes work. Thank you.
I see.
Excuse me
I
one
see-
second.
Go ahead.
Meredith, Steve, Dwight, and Chip, I understand you want to respond and I will recognize you. I just want to make sure that commissioners have a chance to add anything else on sand specifically before you guys respond, so that it's not
That's fair.
repetitive.
Yeah.
Anyone else have something to say about sand? Okay, please go ahead. Chip.
Okay,
you're-
so
you're first.
let me just say two
Sure.
things, and then I'll defer to others that have raised their hand. First, this is not a geotube proposal. This is a geotube and sand nourishment proposal. It is hand in hand. The sediment is necessary in order to replace the sediment in the littoral process in order for this to go. That's why the revetment was rejected and otherwise. I mean, the purpose is to make sure it does two things: protects the toe and also sends sediments down into the littoral process. The last thing I'll say is, we agree that there should be a failure process, and we said that should be in place, approved by the commission before construction starts. And so we can address the issue that the commission has in terms of enforcement, so that you're not in that position. And I think that will answer both of your questions. So sorry for going ahead of you, Stephen and Mary.
No problem, Chip. I just want to piggyback that. I think that there's actually a relatively simple answer, but it's three parts. The first part is that obviously the commission will have failure criteria, or should have failure criteria, and already does, and will have better criteria if it issues an order of conditions that says that the geotubes can be removed if the sand is not provided, and would require, as it currently does, that an escrow or other funds be in place for that removal to happen. So that is sort of the really basic version of it. But there are two other important things to keep in mind. One is that the geotubes themselves are not designed to be exposed to UV rays and the ocean. And if they are, they will wear out very, very quickly. And so it is in the interest of the applicant to keep the sand covered on the tubes, because the sand itself actually protects the tubes from the environment, from UV rays and from wave action. And then the third thing is that part of our agreement with the town is that if this goes forward, there has to be several years, and we don't have the exact numbers worked out, but there's a requirement that there be operational costs in place, funding for operation in place in advance. So we're not working on a day-to-day basis. So if this goes forward with your permit, the accompanying document with the town will require that the funding be in place for that to happen before we go forward. So you will be able to have confidence that the money will be in place, that the applicant has the incentive to put the sand down, and that you will have the ability to order the geotubes removed under an escrow if that doesn't happen. So I hope those three prongs give you some confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Thanks,
Meredith.
thanks so much. As obviously one of the representatives tonight who's a homeowner here on Baxter Road, I also I know you're hearing from our experts, you're hearing from our lawyers, but you want to hear from us, you want to hear from me. And I want to also just simply say, not just from our lawyers, but I want to personally say, we understand your concern. I've been here to all of the hearings. I'm a new party to this process, and we have heard you. We have made sure, as Stephen and everybody else has identified, that there's going to be all of the appropriate thresholds and requirements legally. But we also want to say to you that we care about the beaches, we care about the islands, and we think that with this NOI that identifies the appropriate amount of sand, and that is also the appropriate distance and is sustainable, that we look forward to being a compliant and a great partner of this island through this project, if you approve it. Thank you.
What?
Thank you, Commissioner Engelborg. And on a technical point, Attorney Cohen, brought up some of the financial and legal things. There's 2 points that I want to bring up. On this project, the town is also a co-applicant. So there's the town working in concert with SBPF to make sure that any conditions are complied with. But on a technical point, the design of the geotube system with the sand template was specifically designed to include a 22 cubic yard per linear foot template for all 4 reaches. And then we looked at the sand contribution rate by reach. And when we look at that 22 cubic yards per linear foot, and reach and the contributions given by reach, it varies by reach. So that volume in the template ranges from 1.8 times the annual contribution rate for the current project, that 950 feet that's in place, up to nearly 16 times for reach 4. A length weighted average, we have 3.5 times this amount of sand. So basically 3.5 years worth of sand on the template for the entire project. That's a length weighted average, but it ranges from 2 to 16 years. So the template was specifically oversized, rather than saying, let's only do 2 times or 3 times and have it vary in size along that length, to make sure that there's plenty of sand out there for the littoral drift system to protect the geotubes from UV and wave damage, and to make sure that there's always plenty of sand out there to be used for recovering and to contribute to the littoral system. So I think the factor of safety here has been greatly exceeded compared to the project that's in place now.
Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to recognize Linda and then Vince to talk specifically about sand. And then we are going to wrap up this discussion for tonight. I'm going to get some feedback on what additional areas of interest commissioners have in discussing at future meetings. We'll provide that to the applicants. If commissioners think of other things outside of this meeting, they can send them to staff, who will share those with the applicants. And then we will discuss the schedule moving forward. So Linda, please go ahead.
I just have one comment. We were talking about sand and previous issues. For me, this is a brand new application. They're making the representation that they're going to work with the sand and do what they're supposed to do and how they're representing it, and especially in consort with the town. I can't make a decision based on prior prejudices on what they did and didn't do about sand. I'm listening to the presentation today, and since they started this brand new application, I'm looking at it with fresh eyes. I can't sit here and say I'm going to vote against it because they didn't provide the sand before. I'm taking them on their word, and I'm taking them that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So that's just all I have to say about that. If they're going to provide the sand, and they're going to not put them in until they have a consistent sand source, that works for me. I just cannot keep going backwards to everything they did wrong all these other times, and the enforcement action, et cetera. This is a brand new application, town's involved, and they're making representations that they're going to do the sand. And I don't want to spend personally any more time talking about what they did or didn't do before. I have to look at this as a new application.
Thank you, Linda. And I'll trust that you understand that all commissioners are making their decisions on the basis of this application alone, but it is reasonable to have questions or concerns with a project of this size.
I
Yes,
got it.
Vince.
And we're all concerned, but I've just got to move forward now.
Thank you. Yes, Vince, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Engelborg. To hammer home the point, the town is far more involved than we ever have been before. We're a project partner. It would behoove the town quite clearly to have strong oversight. And to that end, we have an operation and maintenance manual that clearly lays out who is responsible, who undertakes reporting, who is reported to. And from the town side, that specifically is named within the operation and maintenance manual. And for clarity, it is me. It comes to me. And if in the event that I'm on vacation or anything goes sideways, it's the town manager. It is a strong line of reporting and oversight from the town to ensure that this is correctly and adequately enforced. And that is part of what SBPF have also agreed to in order to correct previous issues, but also that we can move forward with trust to make sure that this will be adequately and correctly managed and maintained into the future. The town is a partner and the town is taking responsibility and oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. So I think that we need to have further discussion related to sand and sand sourcing. I don't question that the applicant has, the ability to get the sand as needed, but in the years that since the previous GO2 project went into place and this project has been applied for, the Nantucket Concom has adopted some changes to testing and screening of sediment. And one of the things that we routinely do now is, in addition to just grain size analysis, we're requiring additional testing beyond that for chemical and biological contamination. And we haven't really had a robust discussion about, where exactly is the sand coming from. We know that we talked about the volumes a little bit, but we haven't really talked about it reach by reach. So I think we do need to set aside some time for that. I also think, apart from the presentation that SBPF gave and the limited comments that Vince just had, we haven't really had any discussion during this hearing process about that operation and maintenance manual. We had discussion in previous processes, but unfortunately we have to have that discussion again for this record. So I think that is something that should be added to the agenda. And I personally am unwilling to leave the discussion of imminent danger at B. I think that, I could talk for many more minutes on this, but I'll just be brief. As a scientist, some of imminent danger comes down to how statistically likely is something to happen. And if the applicant is saying 2 storms could knock out 60 feet, but they're not referencing the size and significance of those storms. Yeah, 1% chance storms in a row in the same 3-day period could have the type of effects that you're talking about. But how statistically likely is that going to happen? So we're short on time, but I think we should have a future discussion about that. Commissioners, are there any other hot topic items that you think deserve a robust discussion? No? Okay, if you think of anything, please send them to the staff, and the staff will transfer those over to the applicants for their appropriate review. Just before we conclude this hearing, I know we have to do the scheduling, but I do want to recognize that we do not have time to take public comment at this hearing related to this agenda item. But if members of the public are listening and had comments about what was said today, please send those in to the staff. And definitely when we put forward the next meeting schedule, we will reserve specific blocks of time for the public to weigh in. So with that being said, I think our job here is to discuss potential next meeting dates, and I will ask either Jeff or Will for some guidance on that.
Sure. So our next regular meeting is May the 9th. That's certainly an available date. And then we have an open week on May the 16th as well. And
I'm
then
not
our
here,
next-
if you recall, I'm not here on the 16th at that whole week.
So then the following regular meeting is on the 23rd.
Thank you. I know town government sometimes things get a little chaotic right after town meeting, so I'd prefer to try to keep meeting schedules light for May 9th to not deal with unanticipated consequences. But that's just me. It sounds like not all members will be able to be available at the May 16th. I think we could potentially do the same thing that we're doing tonight and put aside an hour at the May 23rd meeting for another hearing of this sort. What are people's thoughts on that?
I'm okay if you want to do another 4 o'clock meeting on the 23rd, and then we can schedule another meeting in June when we have a better idea.
Somebody representing the project, would you be willing to do another 1 hour at 4 o'clock meeting on May the 23rd?
I think that makes this Chip, I think that makes sense. We still need to understand, however, where you stand with the peer review, because I think that's the one piece that we're waiting for so that we can respond to.
Yes, sorry. Staff, can you give us any update on the peer review?
Yep, we've finished. They're kind of making their initial review. I know there's a want to connect with the applicant if they have any questions. I think they wanted to get through everything. We'll hopefully get everyone connected in this next week now. And hopefully we'll have everything in place before that May 23rd meeting.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest that we meet on May 23rd at 4 p.m. to take some public comment related to items that were discussed today, and then to get a presentation from the Concom's independent reviewer, and then finally to schedule hopefully another separate meeting to tie up the remaining parts of the process. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Yep.
That would make sense. So you'd be able to have that peer review discussion in that same, on the 23rd.
Yes.
Okay. And right, and then we would have a meeting after that so that we would be able to respond. That would make sense.
Yeah, sometime in likely mid-June at that point.
If we can get a written report from the peer reviewer in advance of that too, we'll certainly get that distributed for everybody. So that may expedite that process too.
Great, thank you, Jeff. And I want to extend a sincere thank you to everybody who participated today. I know this is a long, extensive process, and thank you for sticking with it.
Well, thank you for providing us the extra time. That was very helpful.
Great, have a good night. So with that item concluded, we will move on in our agenda. We're still under notices of intent. We will move to Third Point Holdings LLC at 39 Quays Road. This is SE 483738 and it's represented by Art Gasparo. Art, how are you? Oh yes, Joe, are you acknowledging that you're leaving the meeting? Joe, you're on mute.
I'm signing out at 5:18.
Thank you. We'll acknowledge that you're leaving the meeting at 5:18 and we will pass it over to Art to present the NOI. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're before the commission tonight for the continued public hearing on this application, which involves installing a bulkhead to replace an existing failing timber bulkhead. And based on previous discussion, we had come back to the commission with installing the bulkhead landward of the existing timber bulkhead instead of seaward. And that's what's shown in red on the plan before you with the zigzag type line. And so the last discussion where we left it with the commission, I believe, was there was some questions about the proposed beach stairs. And what we've done is to change the lowest section of the beach stairs, the part that runs from the top of the bulkhead to the beach, to be seasonal. And that is, we would put a couple of brackets on the bulkhead cap and have a prefabricated set of stairs. It's likely only to be about 4 steps that could slide into that bracket, sort of have a pin or bolt of some sort to secure it through the season. And then at the end of the summer season, those steps could be lifted out of that bracket and carried up and stored in the upland, so that during essentially the winter months, there would be no set of stairs from the top of the bulkhead down to the beach. And then during the season in which the owners are going to want access down to the beach, they'd be able to use a set of stairs to get to the beach on their own property. I would point out that this set of stairs is nearly identical to the set that is just couple hundred feet even to the west at number 41 Quays Road, that was approved by the commission and for which a Chapter 91 license was issued. We will be also going to Mass DEP Waterways for a Chapter 91 license for this. Again, we don't believe that the small set of stairs is going to have a detrimental impact or adverse impact on the interest protected by the commission. Not going to significantly, interfere with the rights of passage along that beach for the small bit that it projects. I think that the point of no adverse impact and continued access is clearly demonstrated by the same set of stairs that exists so close nearby on the adjacent property. And then Attorney Wood is also on with us tonight and has reviewed these materials. We also did a fair amount of research as to other situations very similar where there are a set of stairs on an adjacent way that the commission has permitted an owner to have a set of stairs on their own property. And so we believe that on the basis that this application and this proposal is not going to have an adverse impact on the protected interests and is consistent with other decisions of the commission, that an order of conditions would be issued. And with that, we'd be happy to either Mr. Wood or myself address any additional questions or concerns should the commission have them with the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or concerns? All right, I have one, and it is that generally in permitting these beach stair projects, we receive some type of drawing or cross-sectional of those stairs. And I don't see that in this packet application, so I'd request that before moving forward.
Mr. Chair, we certainly could provide that. I mean, that's is that something that we could just have for staff approval? It's going to be a standard section we're going to provide. It's going to be really no different than any of the other stairs, but if you're comfortable with that, we could, it's just the cross section. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm personally comfortable with that. I just think it needs to get into the packet or into the record and into the application so that there's no confusion later on.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman.
Do any members of the public have questions or comments? I see none. Will, do we have everything we would need to close this application?
Yes, we do, pending the cross section, obviously, but we would be closing it with that noted.
Yeah, we can add that in order of conditions. Art, would you like to close the application?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close the application? Mark, thank you. And Mike, I'll give you the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mark Beal,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. Thank you.
I keep
Thank
waiting
you.
for you to say Joe Plandowski before you get to me, so I'm sort of like, I
Yeah, he
usually
left.
don't fire, I don't follow Mike normally.
He left. Okay, thank you. And that will move us into Vandenborn, 135 Walwinet Road, SE 48 37 43, also represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we have a continued application where we've provided supplemental information to address some of the concerns that the commission had at the last hearing, specifically with respect to the proposed driveway and walking path that had been proposed on the north end of the property within the 25-foot buffer zone. And so working with the applicants, with the owners, we've shifted the driveway to the south corner of the property, which is essentially where a driveway used to be located anyway. And that driveway is well outside of the 50-foot buffer zone now, instead of partially into the 25. And then while the stone stepping path to get between the house and the driveway is longer, it is all outside of the 25-foot buffer zone in its entirety. So we believe that it meets all of the performance standards and regulations, not requiring a waiver for that feature. The stepping stones would have space between them, so it wouldn't be a sort of a tight butt joint type of a.
I didn't get that.
It's not going to be like a patio. So again, it's very sandy soil and easily percolating. I don't believe there'd be any sort of concern with runoff or adverse impact from a path of stepping stones to get from the driveway to the house.
Thank you, Art. Will, can you stop the share? Questions, comments from commissioners? Any members of the public would like to chime in on this application? Please raise your hand. Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do, Seth.
Art, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Do we have a motion to close? Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Mike, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mark Beal,
Thank you, Art, for making those adjustments. Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
and Linda Williams, it's your turn.
Aye.
Okay, that closes with unanimous consent. Thank you,
Thank you.
Art. That will bring us into our next agenda item, which is Woodbury Lane Association, rear Woodbury Lane, SE 48 37 49, represented by David Haynes. David, good evening.
Good evening to you. We continued this a couple of meetings ago because we need to have it, it needed to be posted in the environmental monitor, which it was. And so that was taken care of. Also, we did submit a letter in response to Ms. Fader's letter from last time regarding the drainage. She had questioned questioning the work, including one, whether it was a net benefit, an improvement. Why is that? My response is, when it's generally accepted that removing invasive species in a monoculture does improve wildlife habitat by providing additional food sources and nesting habitats. She also questioned whether or not the removal of the vegetation would increase the amount of water in there. Part of the proposal is to come back in and replant the area with shrubs at a six foot on center ultimate density, but in natural clusters. Those shrubs will replace any of the evapotranspiration that currently comes off of the Phragmites. It'll be similar. There's no regrading occurring, no soil disturbance is proposed, except for the planting of plants. And so it's not going to affect the ability of that detention basin to function as it currently does. And basically those are my comments in response to hers. Oh yeah, she also brought up questions whether the land use around the outside is the same as the original deed restriction and whether the detention basin is functioned as designed. That is well beyond the scope of this project, not anything that we're dealing with. We're just dealing with removal of the invasive species. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Did you want me to go over the procedure that we're proposing to use, or people remember it?
If you would like to briefly go ahead.
Okay, it's to go in and cut off any seed heads that are there, and dispose of them in the digester, and then to treat the Phragmites either by a hand or a weed wand with glyphosate at the recommended application rates, all supervised by a licensed applicator. And then come in the fall and remove all stalks, take it down to basically bare bones, and repeat the procedure in the following for the following 2 years as necessary. But I think it'll be quite effective for removal this time.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from commissioners? Okay, any questions, comments, concerns from members of the public? I don't see any. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Indeed, we do.
David, would you like to close?
Oh, yes, please.
Do we have a motion to close? Mark, thank you. And Tim, I'll give you the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
Aye.
Mark Beal. You're on mute.
Just do a thumbs up, Mark.
I'll take that as
There
an
you
aye. Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Great, thank you, and thank you, David.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well. That will bring us to our next item on the agenda, which is Nantucket Islands Land Bank at Lily Pond Park, various SE 483757, represented by Rachel Freeman. Rachel, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Engelberg. I am here on behalf of the Nantucket Islands Land Bank tonight to present a notice of intent application for invasive species management at the Lily Pond Park. This park is approximately 6.4 acres. About 5 acres of that is wetland. This is a pretty interesting BVW, which basically contains about 6 stormwater outfall pipes that are discharging stormwater into the park from approximately a 90-acre surrounding residential area. And for a long time, the Lily Pond has been increasingly getting wetter and experiencing increased exposure to invasive species, which are expanding throughout the park. The land bank is in the process of designing a larger scale hydrologic and ecological restoration for the park. In the meantime, we feel it's a good idea to begin the invasive species management component before we start any construction on the park. So that permitting process will begin subsequent to this. We are proposing to treat actually a series of invasive species. I used to lightly joke that Lily Pond Park was actually a great place to go look at invasive species if you wanted to learn about them. We have Japanese knotweed, Phragmites, purple loosestrife, peppermint, privet, multiflora rose, Himalayan blackberry, porcelainberry, garlic mustard, English ivy, honeysuckle, and yellow iris. I wouldn't say any of us are proud of that, but it does give us something to work with. So we are here tonight with a proposal to work towards managing all of these species at some level in a variety of different ways. We have proposed for each of these target species a technique that we would be using, and I'm happy to run through all of them if you would like me to, as well as a time of year that we would ideally like to be treating these. This project qualified as an ecological restoration limited project, and so we filed that form as well as an advertisement in the Environmental Monitor prior to actually opening the hearing tonight, actually 14 days prior. So just to give you a little bit of background, some of the treatment methods that we'll be using include foliar spray, hand pulling and digging. For the woody species, we will likely be doing some cut stump and or cut vine, clip and drip, and foliar wiping, depending on the plant in question. Again, I am happy to go further and provide additional information about the process if the commissioners would like, and I'm also happy to answer any questions this evening.
Thank you. I think we'll forego that for now unless commissioners have specific questions on species or control methods. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns? I, for one, would just like to say that I'm very happy to see this project come in. And I agree that Lily Pond has historically been a great place to learn about invasive species and teach people about invasive species. And I've done that myself many times over the past few years, but it'll be great to see a more native biodiverse habitat there in the future.
Thank you. I very much agree.
Any members of the public wish to weigh in? Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, we do.
Rachel, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Do we have a motion to close? Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote. Tim Brain.
Aye.
Mark Beal.
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
And Seth Engelborg, aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that will bring us to our next agenda item. Actually, I was told that we would like to take agenda item 7 and 8 at the end of the meeting because Mark Ritz might be late, but I don't see him here. I did see him before, so we will do that. We will postpone item 7, which is Nantucket Mountain LLC 21 Berkeley Ave, SE 48 3758, and item 8, Olmsted 50 Walburnett Road, SE 48 3760, to the end of the notice of intent section. Yes, Will.
We are going to do that, but I think we might have skipped number 5, 33 No Nantum.
Glenberg.
Okay. We will go to 33 Nonantum Avenue, SE 48 3755, represented by Art Gasparo, and then after that we'll go on to number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For everyone. Sorry.
This is another continued hearing where we've provided some supplemental information. You may recall this was for a set of beach stairs, and we had also proposed a couple of rows of snow fencing on the beach. And there was some concern with the snow fencing and whether it was 2 rows or CS. Long story short, we've eliminated the snow fencing to just have the set of beach stairs. That being said, I still would like to continue this application after hearing whether the commission has any other concerns and or questions, and the reason being that we had received a review from Natural Heritage, including the fencing, and I've sent them the same materials and have been following up, but I haven't received back a review based on the revised plans, and I would like to I'd like to have that before, and I'm not sure whether I think you probably need that, but either way, I'd like to hear if there are any other concerns, and if not, then we would continue to the 9th, please.
Thank you, Art. And yes, I do think we would need that updated determination. I'll also ask, as I did before, for a cross-section or drawing on the beach stairs. And with that, do commissioners have any other questions or comments? Does not look like it. Members of the public, questions, comments, feedback? Okay, seeing none. All right,
Just-
you would like to continue until what date?
The next meeting, which I believe is the 9th.
Yes, May 9th. Okay, that will continue until May 9th.
That being said, Mr. Chair, just a quick response to your request. These are going to be a prefabricated set of aluminum stairs, so I could provide you with that, the spec sheet, sort of similar to all the other ones, if that works.
Yes, the spec sheet from the company or the installer is fine.
Alumidoc, sure.
Thank you. So that will continue until May 9th.
Thank you.
All right. And now we will move on to Chrono at 5 Old Quidnut Milk Route, SE 483761, also represented by Arcus Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an application for a ground-mounted solar array. Maybe we could change the.
Yeah, Will, you have the previous.
There's no waivers required. I believe this project would have been filed as an RDA, except for that we are within mapped habitat, and so we are waiting for review from Natural Heritage. And but in terms of the work and the interest protected by the commission, again, there's no work proposed within 50 feet of the vegetated resource area boundary, and the limit of clearing is fairly limited enough to install the solar array. That's what's shown in green, and then in magenta is the ground mounted solar panels. Be happy to take any questions, and then likewise request a continuance to the 9th for Natural Heritage review.
Thank you, Art. Any questions, comments from members of the commission? Okay, what about members of the public? Seeing none, we will continue this application until May 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that will take us on to the next agenda item, which is 16 Monomoy Road, Nominee Trust at 16 Monomoy Road. Also represented by Art Gasparo. You're a busy guy tonight, and go ahead.
Yeah, I had a little crunch of applications that I managed to get done. So we're before you tonight with essentially a fairly small project, which is to make a bit of an alteration and slight extension to an existing elevated walkway, which serves the property owner to get down to Salt Pond, and that leads out to the creeks. And there's a set of stairs at the northerly end of the existing staircase, which would be removed, and instead create a slight extension about 8 feet, running westerly to where there's a bit of a cove, if you will, natural indent in the topography, and then the salt pond. And that's where they've typically been using to access the water. It's an easier access for kayaking, essentially, primarily. And so in order to not walk across the marsh from where the bottom of the stairs are now, I believe they could better protect the marsh and have better access by making this revision. In terms of, like I say, we would be removing a set of stairs that are essentially equivalent to the size of the stairs that would be added just to get down from the elevation of the walkway to the ground. And the increase in length of the walkway is about 8 feet. We list it as 11 overall, but that's really just to incorporate the set of stairs. But if when you net that out and take those out, and again, it would be prefabricated in the upland and then just carried down, hand dug posts to support that. And again, overall, I think it'll stop sort of pedestrian activity on the salt marsh grasses and be a bit of an improvement there. With that, we'd be happy to take any questions or concerns.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from members of the commission? Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns from members of the public? I don't see any of that either. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Are you still waiting for NHESP on this, Art? Or did I have that noted incorrect?
Yes, I believe so, but let me just double check that. I don't think I saw an
I haven't
email
seen it
from
yet.
them.
Okay.
Yes, we are. So we would like to continue to the 9th for that, please.
Okay. We will continue this application to May 9th then.
Thank you.
Slacking.
Thank you as well. That will move us on to our next item, which is Turk Family LLC at 15 Marsh Hawk Lane. Not sure if there's a file number, but it's represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, and we have received a file number as of today. That number is SE 483766, and staff was copied on that email from DEP to us. So thank you. On behalf of the property owner and applicant, the Turk Family LLC, this is an application for the proposed construction of an in-ground pool, shed, driveway relocation, landscaping and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The plan that you see before you depicts the parcel of property. It's located at a fairly long dead end at the end of Marsh Hawk Lane. The property, while it is adjacent to High Brush Path subdivision or Austin Farm subdivision to the left, it does not have access to that subdivision, and the parcel is not part of that subdivision. The subject property itself is located on the north side of the road. It's approximately 94,157 square feet, and it includes an existing single-family home on a developed lot in an area where the surrounding land use is residential. The site is serviced by currently public sewer and a private well. Up until a few years back, there was an on-site septic system on the property. That system was abandoned when the town provided sewer to the Somerset area, and that included Marsh Hawk Lane. So the property is currently tied to public sewer. Site is not located in a flood zone, and it is not mapped under the Mass National Heritage Endangered Species Program. The plan you see before you depicts the existing dwelling. You'll notice the wetland, the bordering vegetated wetland. It starts at a culvert which crosses Marsh Hawk Lane. Property to the south is owned by the Nantucket Island Lands Bank, and the vegetated wetland follows a low depression area to the east and runs basically in a north-south direction on the property. You'll notice on the property the 25-foot no disturb line is depicted in red. The 50-foot no build line is depicted in red, and then the 100-foot buffer zone is a darker line. There is an existing deck currently, a portion of which is attached to the house, a portion of which is within the 50-foot no build. It was outside of the no build when the original project was approved. The wetland area has changed since back in 2008 or 2009 from when this property was originally permitted. So this is current vegetated wetland line, and a portion of that deck is within the 50-foot no build. That portion of the deck is proposed to be removed as part of this application. So the deck will be taken out of that small encroachment of the 50-foot no build. However, there will be a bluestone patio that would be constructed in its place. The pool is depicted to the north side of Marshawk Lane, runs in a north-south direction. The shed is adjacent to it, as is the pool equipment. In order to accomplish the pool location in its present spot, it does require us to relocate the driveway. That driveway will be shifted slightly to the west and is also depicted on the plan along with the proposed parking area. Currently, that's an existing gravel driveway, and it will remain as such. Within the body of the application, we've provided analysis with regard to the performance standards. The only area subject to jurisdiction, obviously, is the bordering vegetated wetland. As I had mentioned previously, the site previously had an on-site septic system. So going back and looking at the test pit data that was performed at the time the septic system was installed, the existing septic system was just to the west of the existing pool, in the front of the existing dwelling, adjacent to High Brook Path. There were 3 test pits done at that time. Test pit 1 showed no groundwater to a depth of 12 foot 6 inches. Test pit 2 had no groundwater to a depth of 14 feet. And test pit 3, there was a perched water table at a silty clay loam layer located around 68 inches. So for the purposes of presenting to the commission, I held the most extreme case of where the perched water table was at the time. And due to that fact, I have also provided, as part of the application, a waiver with regard to groundwater separation. Now, based on using that most extreme perched water table, the pool itself would not be constructed in the groundwater, but would be at or just above it would not meet the 2-foot separation. Again, looking at this at a most extreme case, 60 perched water table. There is a section of the pool within the application. It's actually a cast, if you will. It's a fiberglass, I believe, frame. It comes in one piece. It's actually 40 feet long by approximately 15 feet, 5 inches wide. And the maximum depth actually in the deep end of the pool is just under 7 feet. So it's the groundwater separation would occur only in the area of where the deep end of the pool would be. And I believe that would be towards Marshawk Lane. And again, that's using the perched groundwater table from the prior testing for the on-site septic system. There would be no disruption. We would not meet any change in vegetation between the 25 and 50, or meet that criteria of no more than 50% change in between the 25 and the 50-foot setback. Obviously, there's a large amount of area between the 25 and 50 that's located on the subject property. In addition to having the DEP file number, you did receive, and there is in the packet, a letter from the Austin Farm Estates Homeowners Association that speaks specifically to a wooden gate. That is depicted on the plan. It's located at the end of the gravel way at Marshock Lane. And that letter was submitted by the Homeowners Association. It was actually submitted by its treasurer, Charlie Gibson. I met with Charlie out on the site yesterday. Have spoken with the representatives of the Turk family, and I'm comfortable that between the Turk family and the Homeowners Association, that a agreement can be made to ensure that any activity that we are doing to relocate the drive will not provide an access way from Marshock Lane to High Brush Path. So I'm comfortable in representing that. I believe Charlie may be on the meeting, and I won't speak for him, but I'm comfortable that the two parties can agree what will be done with that. I'm not sure many of what was in the letter was kind of under the purview of the commission, but it is a letter in your packet, and I did want to address it. The application itself is currently before the Historic District Commission, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Questions, comments, concerns from commissioners? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul, is on the 50-foot buffer zone line, is that the pool coping that's sticking?
That's part of the, yeah, that's part of the bluestone patio.
I see that, but the screen share went away. Will, can you put that? Yeah, I don't know. Did they consider sliding the pool back a little bit to get it out of not the patio? And I think that would be fine, but it looks like the fiberglass portion of the pool runs into the 50. Am I seeing that incorrectly?
No, it will not be in the 50. That would be something that we would stake, and it's not this one might be a little bit different than we typically, because this comes and is just dropped right in. So typically when we do that, would allow for like a 10-inch, shot creek wall that we would keep outside of the 50. But this will be staked, and the pool structure itself will be outside of the 50. I understand what you're saying, Mike, because there's like a double line around here.
Yeah. Okay.
Quite honestly, that's our standard kind of format. But I think with the way this pool is set, I'm not even sure that's how it actually even looks. I think the bluestone patio will just go right up to the frame itself. The pool is actually cambered from the top, and it's cambered to the inside as opposed to a straight wall down, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Other commissioners?
I have a question, Seth.
Yes, Mark.
I couldn't. Do you have any concern, Seth, with the distance to water, the high water table?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I do too.
I have a concern related to the waiver that's being applied for, because the waiver being requested requires that applicants prove that there is both no adverse impact and no reasonable alternative. And I think in this case, a whole suite of reasonable alternatives exist. If you look at the shape of the pool, it could be easily adjusted for that one section to just be shallower. Plenty of people have 4 and 5 foot pools, and the need for a 7-foot pool isn't necessarily being laid out here. Also, as I mentioned many times before, there's above ground pools. There's even kind of nifty elevated pools that the project representative before us has proposed in other locations on the island. So I would urge the applicant to look back into that and come back with alternatives for meeting that standard without requiring the waiver. Thank you.
That's kind of where I was going, Seth. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Okay. members of the public, I'll recognize you now. Charlie Gibson, I see that you have your hand raised. Will, can we bring him over, please? And I'll remind members of the public to please keep your testimony to issues that are related to our jurisdiction of the Wetland Protection Act and the Nantucket bylaw and local regulation. So Charles Gibson, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. As Mr. Santos said, we did meet and now we're in general agreement. The only thing the homeowners association would request is that the portion of the fence that'll be, or the gate that'll be removed, is that the vegetated wetland that's within the 100-foot buffer there just be in the order that it just be maintained as setback to allow for the driveway. And that's the concerns that as we as the abutters have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have comments from other members of the public? Seeing none. Paul, given the suggestion made by commissioners here, what would you like to do?
Well, I've heard from two commissioners with regard to the groundwater separation. Just a couple of points with regard to that. This is a pre-made unit, as I had said. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than a standard pool construction.
Well, I already said it once, but
please mute yourself, Charlie.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit different than a standard pool construction, whereas the excavation would continue down. It's a completely sealed unit. It's a prefabricated unit. So the depth is, everything is kind of set by the prefab unit. Again, based on the soil testing that we did have out here, we're looking at a perched groundwater table, which in some cases different. You know, it's obviously what you had is that you had a specific layer of soil in one of the test pits, which for the purposes of designing a septic system, obviously is what we're going to be using for separation. In this particular case, I think we are not in the groundwater. We are clearly above it, and that's above being even the perched water table. I think it's, in this particular case, I think the waiver would be justified. This case is completely different than the flood zone. The reason why we were looking at some of those elevated pools were specific to the flood zone in regard to the land's ability to absorb flood water. That's not the case here. And an above ground pool is not going to be looked at favorably, obviously, from the HDC perspective in a case where it can clearly be put, below grade. In this case, the above ground pools were specific to the flood zone requirements and the ability of the land for stormwater. So, I'd like to potentially hear if I've got, I think I have a board of, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 right now.
Yes, that's correct.
If there's a concern with groundwater, from any other members, what I would look at doing is either, looking at the grade of the patio itself, or coming up with some other alternative to work the pool still within this particular area.
Thank you. And before I recognize Tim, I'll just say that I understand what you're saying about a perched water table. And, it is a different case, but areas like this are essentially the site of future wetlands as sea level rise pushes water up closer to the surface, causing these places to get wetter. It is going to be a cause for concern. And the manufacturer that your client is suggesting to use, I hear you, that's a prefab unit, but there are plenty of configurations that they make. So Tim, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Paul, I'm inclined to go along with
Seth and Mark on this, just so you're aware.
Any other commissioners would like to weigh in? Okay, Paul, how would you like to proceed?
Well, in light of that, I'm going to ask for a continuance till the next meeting, and I'll come back with either an elevated patio elevation or a specific boring or test pit in the specific area of the pool, as opposed to trying to interpolate the data used for the septic system logs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we will continue this application till May 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you as well. So that will move us on in tonight's meeting to AC Easy Street LLC at 10 Easy Street, which is also represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. And if I could just give me a minute here. Okay, thank you. This is Paul Santos from Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the applicant ACK Easy Street LLC for a property located at 10 Easy Street. This application is for the former Killen Real Estate office, which is located at the corner of Easy Street and Cambridge Street. That property has recently transferred ownership into the owner and applicant that we have before you this evening. This application is for the proposed installation of a brick driveway and walkway with associated site work, grading and landscaping within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the buffer zone to a coastal bank, which is the bulkhead located across Easy Street, and land containing shellfish, which is the interface between the bulkhead and then Nantucket Harbor. This application was actually previously before you and approved at the time the Killen family owned the property. At that time, the driveway configuration was in the same spot. However, it was designed as a geogrid pavers as opposed to brick. It did have a component of it for an impervious area, which this application does also. This application shows an area of partially bricked area, but then also has a center pervious fieldstone center strip to provide a pervious component to the driveway. The prior application, a portion of the work was completed at that time, and that portion of the work was the actual curb cut or the reworking of the sidewalk and the placement of the curb cut to the site. At the time, the property had been sold. The driveway component had not been completed, but in order to provide a clean title to the property, that work was closed out, and that's why we're before you again tonight for this particular work. So that is the extent of the application. I will say on a site visit this past weekend, visiting sites here in preparation of this meeting, in looking at this site, came upon the fact that some of the brick had been started to be put down by the contractor and the landscaper. Upon notifying the owner to the effect that I had not been before this board yet, that work was stopped. I notified natural resources staff to that effect upon my discoverance of it. So if you were to drive by there prior to this meeting, you would have seen a portion of the brick had been started and then stopped. I just put that out there and to try to be as transparent as we can with regard to what happened there. I did email Will and Jeff first thing Monday morning with regard to that. The application itself, actually, I did include within there, I did include a waiver request. As we are although across the street. The proposed activity will be located across the street from the coastal bank. And we did submit the waiver for that activity, again, using the premise that the site is separated by a constructed roadway with regard to your 50-foot setback, and the fact that the paving under the definition would be considered structure. And there is a waiver request completed within the application to that effect. And it says, and portions of the buffer zone between the proposed project and adjacent resource area had been previously altered. It's a vehicular access way, which is kind of the standard waiver you would typically issue in a wetland or resource area located across the street from a particular property. So that's the extent of the application. They have received HDC approval at this point for the driveway configuration. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Commissioners, questions, comments? So a few things. So it's my understanding that the project actually doesn't need a waiver because it's not considered a structure. It's outside of the 25-foot buffer, right?
Oh, that's correct. Yeah. Yes.
So, pervious paving in the current iteration of the regulations is allowed up to the 50-foot line. So I don't think the waiver is needed, but in any case, I appreciate the request. And I did see that the work had started without the benefit of a permit, which is always tough to see, but I appreciate you being proactive about it. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Seth. Paul, that was long before memory serves me. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Where the parking area is going in, that was lawn, wasn't it?
Oh, correct. Yes. Yes.
So I would be somewhat concerned with the permeability of what's going in there, because that area is underwater on a somewhat irregular basis. I didn't know if that was a concern of yours, the owners. I think it probably should be.
Actually, this area, yeah, if I could, Mark, this area actually doesn't flood too bad. The easy street flooding typically doesn't come up this far. It's majority of it's down past at the it's kind of at the crest and then down towards the dreamland. So, but I mean, that's why we've incorporated the pervious component into what we're doing here.
Okay, I just saw I'd ask, Paul. That's fine. Thank you.
No, that's no problem. Yeah. Yeah, surprisingly enough, this property, through the typical flooding down there, I don't think I've ever seen this one underwater, actually.
Any other commissioners, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, any members of the public wishing to weigh in here? I don't see any. Mark, do you have something else to add, or just your hand's just still up? Okay. Do we have a file number for this one?
We do, yes.
And I guess, Will, do we have everything else we need to close?
We do, and the file number is 3765. And I'll just make a super quick comment on my part. Thanks, Paul, for reaching out super early on Monday, because it was right before I was heading there to check the site. So always appreciated, and that was proactive. So
I've learned long ago, go visit the sites before the hearing, because it's doesn't bode well when you're being told something's done.
Yeah. Paul, would you like to close?
I would love to.
Do we have a motion to close? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mark Beal,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye, and just for jollies, during the no-name storm, we had our office down there on Oak Street, and I came out, it was hip high, and it was flooded. But that
Yeah.
was 30 years ago.
That was the no-name storm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was the last one out of that Harry Gordon garage building that we all were in.
I think Paul is well aware that it's possible to flood there. I don't think anyone
Yeah.
is disagree with that.
And it hasn't been 100 years since that one.
No.
I will vote aye. So that will be closed, and that will move us on into the next. You're welcome. Into the next item on the agenda, which is Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 101 Mycomet Avenue, SE 48 3763, represented by Rachel Freeman.
Good evening and thank you, Chair Engelberg. My name is Rachel Freeman. I'm representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank in a notice of intent requesting to remove a dilapidated shed that is within a 25-foot buffer of a BVW. This is located on land bank property at 101 Mycomet Ave. The property itself is approximately 12.5 acres and is located at the end of the mizzenmast extension. It's adjacent to the Mycomet Pond to the east and the southeast, and bordered by residential properties to the northeast. We currently maintain trails on the property for public use, and this shed has been there for a number of years, and we have been examining what the next best step is. So we have decided that this is probably best removed, and we would like to do that by hand, demolition and removal on a UTV. And basically we would be taking the shed down and carrying the materials up to the existing trail and using a UTV to take them out to a truck in the parking lot at the mizzenmast parking area. And this is not only within 25 feet of a BVW, it is also not within, but adjacent to land subject to flooding. And this does require waiver, and we feel that it qualifies, as no adverse impact, as well as ultimately providing long-term net benefit for this site. I am happy to answer any questions if the commission has any. And I will say that this is within natural heritage habitat, and to the best of my knowledge, we do not have approval, but I would look to Will to see if he thinks otherwise. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mark, do you have something to say?
I do, yes, thank you. Rachel, are we losing a short-term rental here?
This structure actually can be inundated with water seasonally, so potentially, but only in the summer months.
I could live there.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm glad this is coming in. I do have a few fond memories of doing some education programs there way back in my early days on island, but I don't think anybody will miss this metal shed other than me. Any other commissioners wishing to weigh in? Okay, Will, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to answer Rachel's question that I also don't have the NHESP letter yet, so I think they're just a little behind.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns from members of the public? All right. With that, would you like to continue to May 9th?
Yes, please.
Great. We'll continue this to May 9th.
Thank you very much.
All right. And that will move us on to Town of Nantucket, Mycomet Pond at SE 48 3764. I see Neil Price is on the agenda as the applicant here, and if there are other people who are going to be representing this project, please just introduce yourself and record your name for the record when it's your turn to speak.
Seth, with your permission, I'd like to introduce
Yes.
the project.
Yes, Vince, would you like to take the
Oh.
reins here? And could you just quickly, before we get started, describe who the team is for us?
Absolutely, I've already prepared that. Thank you, Seth. So first of all, I'm Vince Murphy within the Natural Resources Department. Our project team that are going to be presenting tonight, I'm going to give an initial introduction. Then Emma Morgan from the Natural Resources Department is going to present a slide. She will pass it to Rachel Freeman, who will present a slide. Then we'll give it to Neil Price, who is going to do the majority of the presenting, as well as Amy Ball, as well as principals Chris Green and Corey Platt are also present here tonight. Corey is our dredging specialist. Amy, if you wouldn't mind sharing the slides. Amy will be driving the show.
Right. You should have screen share permission.
Thank you, Amy. We've covered a nice introduction so far. So we're here to talk about the Myakama Pond dredging design project. Next slide, please, Amy. So I've given a nice introduction. We have our team. We're going to have some other specialized speakers, such as Corey, along the way. If we could move to the next slide, please. Just to talk about our project location, not a shock to anyone, we're talking about the Myakama area. So this will cover the vast majority of Myakama Pond for the accessible sediments. I think we're going to have a graphic later on that. There we are. Everything outlined here in gray is within the dredging limit. That will get discussed more comprehensively later. So the purpose here is to look at water quality and to cut back on the harmful algal blooms that this pond has suffered over the last number of years, to remove phosphorus loading and to improve the aesthetics of the pond and increase its recreational value. We're looking at dredging something in the order of 80,000 cubic yards and up to 55,000 cubic yards of sand, which will be in a 1 foot over dredge. Hydraulic, the sand will be moved over to the wastewater treatment plant nearby. There's going to mainly use existing roads to minimize the disturbance to vegetation. And the purpose here is to see about undertaking the beneficial reuse as well, so that we don't have anything wasted. We can have sand for reuse for the beaches and other organic muck that can be dewatered and potentially reused as a type of pre-fertilized soil. Just to give a quick background on how we got to this point, the town has been working on this for quite some time to deal with the organic the buildup of organic sediments and all the nitrogen and phosphorus loading in here. And the town at 2022 town meeting had an article for $300,000 for design for the dredging of Myakama Pond. This was a tremendous benefit, and then the Land Bank came on board to further support and supplement that. The Land Bank is a partner on this project. In 2023 town meeting, about this time last year, the voters also put forward and approved $4 million to undertake dredging works. We're now advancing our design and have funding in place for when we need to move forward with dredging. With that and a little bit of background, I hope everyone enjoyed that. We have several more presenters, and for now I'd like to pass it to Emma to talk about water quality issues.
Thank you, Vince. So my name is Emma Morgan. I'm the water quality specialist for the town of Nantucket. And I just wanted to take a few minutes for this slide to briefly summarize the water quality monitoring we do in Myakama. So Myakama is one of the 4 great ponds on Nantucket that we monitor in the summer months for general water quality. It's sampled once a month from June to September every year, and it's also monitored on a weekly basis from June to October for harmful algal blooms. And then we also wanted to summarize the studies that have taken place in the past leading up to this study, focusing on Mycomet Pond and identifying water quality issues in the pond. So in 2010, a summary funded by the Nantucket Land and Water Council and the UMass Field Station on Nantucket summarized Mycomet Pond water quality concerning physical, chemical, and biological monitoring. There's a study done by the town in 2014, studying the watershed of Mycomet Pond. In 2017, there was the Clean Water Act Section 604B study, which is what identified the phosphorus loading from historically accumulated sediments in the pond, and importantly noted that the dredging of organic sediment within the pond would limit the internal cycling of phosphorus, resulting in these harmful algal blooms that we're seeing. And in 2022, the Mass DEP Department 303 study integrated list of waters added Mycomet Pond to the list of impaired waters for harmful algal blooms. And then in 2024, Geosyntec, a consultant on this project, completed a sediment sampling analysis report. And that concludes my summary, and so I will go ahead and pass it off to Rachel Freeman.
Good evening again. So I'm just here to state our land bank's support for this project. We have been involved in the planning stages and are supporting both through funding and attendance at the planning meetings, as well as performing rare plant surveys this spring to inform the configuration of the dredge sediment transfer pipe to the wastewater treatment plant. Ultimately, we would like to see this project succeed, and we are majority stakeholders around the town. We do have a number, not around the town, around the pond. We do have a number of properties that are adjacent to the pond that facilitate public access. And so we're very supportive of this dredge project. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, my name is Chris Green from Geosyntec, and I'm the design engineer for the project. And over the next, I think, 5 or 6 slides, I was going to get into some of the details that Vince laid out originally here on what the project consists of from a design standpoint and how it lays out. So this slide here has an overview of the project footprint here. Obviously, you can see the pond at the top. There's 4 major areas of the project. The first is we have 3 staging areas or access points, which I'll get into a little bit more detail, but we have the pond itself as, whoops, did you go back, Amy?
Go back, sorry.
We've got the pond itself where the dredging will occur. And then, as people have said, there's a 3rd area which runs from the pond over to the Surfside wastewater treatment plant, which is going to be our pipeline for the hydraulic material that will be transported over there, which follows some of the existing roads. And then our actual handling of the dredged material, where we do desanding and dewatering prior to beneficial reuse, is going to occur within the footprint of the wastewater treatment plant and the existing infiltration beds over there. Now, Amy, next slide, please. So as I said, there's 3 access points. The first one, which we have some pictures of in a few slides here, is the equipment launch area, which is over on West Mycomet Ave. This is where we're going to set it. It's a dirt road section where we'll set up a crane for when we're mobilizing equipment. We'll set up the crane there for a day or two to lift material onto the pond, or the equipment, the barges and the boats and stuff. Our primary access point for day-to-day operations is going to be by the existing parking lot where there's a structure which we call the waterside access area. And then we have identified 80 Mycomet Ave, which is a land bank property, as a secondary equipment and staging. No material will be staged there. But if we need to store equipment or vehicles or anything like that, it's a secondary spot to do that. From a dredging standpoint, we anticipate this project will be done with a hydraulic dredge, and I have a few slides here to explain what that is for those that may not be familiar. The dredging footprint itself, we established some shoreline offsets. to really protect the surrounding vegetation. And I have a graphic of that in a minute. And then we also, the footprint of the dredging is limited to where we have access from the water from our barge. And that was established that we need a minimum of 3 feet of water to be working in from our dredge. And then the removal depth or the vertical limits of it were established to target that organic sediment that Vince referenced early. And in the cross section on the right here, you can see that that's thickest in the middle. This is a typical section from the middle of the pond. Some locations is up to 6 feet thick, and then it thins out on the edges to a couple inches. And our goal here is to remove all of that organic sediment within the dredging footprint, which is the majority of the pond. And as part of that, though, we do take some of the sand below it, and that's what we're referring to as the overdredge. We don't get right up to the banks, as you can see in this cross section. We end anywhere from 5 to 10 feet away. Once we dredge the material, the dredge is going to be transferred through an HDP pipe along those existing roads, the sand roads there. And there'll be 2 booster pumps along the way. It'll be in the form of a slurry. So it'll be hydraulically dredged and then pushed through the pipes with the pumps before it arrives to get to the sediment processing area at the water treatment plant. Once it gets there, we'll do a desanding process to pull out the medium to fine sand, and then we'll do some gravity dewatering and dewatering bags, and I have some pictures of those. And then, as Vince said, the last component of this, which is looking at different beneficial reuses, we have 2 materials here. We have the sands that come out of this, which can be used for beach nourishment projects and other such things, or the organic material, which we've evaluated from an agricultural standpoint. It looks like it could be a good addition for topsoils or potentially some of the farms on the island. Next slide in. So this slide here gives a good snap. The blue is the dredging footprint. You can see on the left side is the ocean side or the beach side there. You can see the water side access in the lower left corner there. Within that dredge footprint, as I said, it's kept within a minimum of 3 feet of water or deeper. That's the draft of our equipment, which I have a picture of in a minute, to work within. And then as we go to the north, the northern extent of this was terminated because there were several resource areas up there, which Amy will talk about in a few minutes, and the water depths did not allow for our equipment to get up in there. But this is the majority of the sediment in the pond, whether it's 95% type of thing that we're targeting as part of this removal. Next slide. This is a picture of some hydraulic dredges for those that may not be familiar. The picture in the lower left is kind of a schematic cartoon. This is like a big vacuum cleaner at the end of the day. It's got suction on it. The suction head gets lowered down to the sediment surface, and the sediment gets pulled up with the water, and that creates kind of a slurry to transport it. And it gets transported through a pipeline. You can see in the picture on the right, and then at the top, you can see the floating pipe, which will sit on the surface of the water. That pipe will come ashore at that waterside access in the lower left of the pond, and then follow the roadways, the existing roadways, which will be temporarily closed to the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide. This is the West Mycomet Road equipment launch area. For those that are familiar with the area, this is a dirt road. As I said, the intent here is to set up a crane to lift our water vessels and equipment onto the pond. We can go over the existing vegetation here. It doesn't require any clearing. And we have enough water depth from the adjacent pond here to float the equipment and launch them there. This would just be, at the beginning of the project, closing the road temporary closing it for a day or two during daylight hours to do the launch. And then at the end of the project to pull the vessels and equipment back out for a day or two. Next slide in. This is the water side access. So this is the day-to-day access for equipment and crews out onto the water. This is the existing parking lot, and I think there's that little the house there just to the right. And this is used as existing access to the pond. And this is also where the pipe will come in. We do anticipate, as part of our design, it's quite soft sand, so we anticipate covering this area with temporary HDP mats to give a stable platform for vehicles and stuff like that, which will then be removed. And we'll be avoiding the vegetation in this area as well. Next slide. This is just a picture. Amy has some figures later. Horsley Witten, this past, I think it was late fall, early winter, went out and flagged the resource areas around this launch site in water access area. And we have some figures showing those, which she'll walk through in a few minutes. These are the roadways that the pipe will follow. They are used, as I think most people know, that they're out there. Our intent is not to clear any vegetation. The pipe will be on the roadways. They'll be temporarily closed. On the next slide, it does allow for access to the other parking lot near the wastewater treatment plant. So there is still access to the public to the beach during this. And one thing I think I forgot to mention, this is anticipated the work to be performed in the off season. So in the fall and winter time, when there is a little less traffic in this area. Next slide. Okay, I think this is one of my final slides here. The pipeline comes along those roads and then comes into the Surfside wastewater treatment plant. You can see the access road in the existing parking lot. We will put either a ramp over the pipe or bury the pipe so vehicles can still access that parking lot over the pipe. And then once the material comes into it, we have a number of bins or infiltration basins that will be used. The material will first be desanded, and then we will place it into our dewatering bags in 2 of the basins. And then we've also set aside a 4th basin for just general support. David from the water treatment plant has been collaborating throughout this process with us and has been extraordinarily helpful. And we just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate everything he's done. Again, another benefit of doing this in the off season is he has capacity here to provide us some space to set up within the existing infiltration basins. The slide here is just a picture of the infiltration basins. For those that aren't familiar with them, they're sand beds, and the water will be allowed to percolate into the sand beds, just like the discharge from the water treatment plant. As part of our sediment and our investigation that Emma mentioned, we tested the water to make sure that it met the existing permit requirements or exceeded those at the wastewater treatment plant, which it did. And so the water will flow right into those sand beds to flow. The desanding and dewatering operation. In the top left here is the desanding unit, or an example desanding unit. As the slurry comes into the first step here, any debris or anything really greater than an inch or 2 gets screened off. And then it goes into these desanding units, which use a combination of hydrocyclones or shaker units to get out that medium to fine sand, medium to coarse sand, excuse me, which then can be separated out, which is the picture on the right on the top. And then from the desanding operation, they'll be placed into the gravity dewatering bags on the bottom right here, which I think some folks are familiar with, to allow this sediment to organic material and fine sand to dewater over time. And then once it reaches the desired dewatered state, it can then be transported to a place for beneficial reuse or temporary stockpiling while the time decides where it will be reused. And at this point, I'll turn it over to you, Amy.
Okay, thanks. For the record, Amy Ball, senior ecologist with the Horsley Witten Group. So by virtue of a water-dependent project, a lot of the work will occur within jurisdictional resource areas under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local Nantucket Wetlands Bylaw. Land underwater being the largest of the resource areas, followed closely by the land subject to coastal storm flow, which are the coastal flood zone. As Chris mentioned, there about 34 acres of my Comet Pond will be hydraulically dredged. And of course, this all occurs within the coastal flood zone, anything below elevation 8 feet at this point in the pond. There's a small amount of inland bank, linear feet, 68 linear feet, at the crossing where the hydraulic pipe would exit the pond to head toward the wastewater treatment plant. And there's also a narrow band of BVW that you saw in the earlier picture with the pink flagging in that same location. The staging area is technically part of a coastal dune barrier beach system. That's the parking area at that location. And there's no work within the coastal bank. The western side of my Comet Pond, based upon its topography and slope, is a coastal bank, but there's no work happening within the coastal bank. And then we do have buffer zone work for which we have requested a waiver, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, where we have about 5,500 square feet of alteration within the 0 to 25 foot buffer, as well as additional acre and a half of alteration within the 25 to 100 foot buffer. And in addition, the site, and I think Rachel mentioned this earlier, quite a lot of the land in and around my Comet Pond is mapped as priority and or estimated habitat by natural heritage. And we have separated out the areas because they do have different species associated with them according to our information request. The largest area for proposed alteration would be within the pond itself, and that's the priority habitat 1, estimated habitat 1, that's about 8.8 acres. And the remaining alterations within that habitat are all occurring within the existing gravel roads or sand roads. And I didn't mention this at the very beginning, but should have. All of the alterations we are proposing are temporary in nature. There will be restoration of the coastal bank, not the coastal bank, I'm sorry, inland bank, and the bordering vegetated wetland following the conclusion of the dredging project. So as I mentioned, the majority of the resource area impacts occur within the land underwater bodies, the pond itself, and then right at the staging area where you've got the coastal dune, barrier beach, small area of bank and BBW. The blue line represents the delineated boundary of the bank of the pond. The green area is the delineated area of BBW. There's a hatching in there off to the right-hand side. That is the Mass GIS hatching representing the wetlands. As I mentioned, we have rare species habitat. Here's a map from our filing that shows areas both to the west and east and north of the pond, as well as within the pond itself. It's mapped habitat for 14 different species. These include 3 birds, 4 plant species, and 7 moth species. And I believe Rachel mentioned this before, and Chris has also mentioned it, but the area where we would have to do some additional plant surveys is sort of shaded in this green area between the pipe pathway, the small dirt parking lot that's in this location, and the infiltration beds at the wastewater treatment plant. And this is because there is a prior survey from, I believe, just last fall, and the land bank did not find any of the 4 plant species within this area, but they did not conduct that particular plant survey during the time when one of the the fourth species flowers, which is in the spring. And I mentioned this before, we do have a request from the section of the local bylaw for work in 2 locations. And this is within the 25-foot buffer zone. And this would occur along the access road of West Comet, My Comet Road, as well as the waterside access area. That's that sort of staging area in the southeast corner of the pond. And the second request is for work within 50 feet of rare species habitat that would occur both at that pond access off West Comet Road, at the waterside access area, and along the dredge sediment transfer pipe access way, and as well as the in-pond work that is actually within the resource area. We have submitted a separate waiver request to the Conservation Commission. We believe that it meets the letter of section 1.03F of your bylaw that allows for waivers to be granted when under existing conditions, the project would not adversely impact the interests identified in the bylaw, and there's no reasonable conditions or alternatives that would allow. We did present a fairly robust alternatives analysis with the filing. The second provision that would allow for a waiver would be if there's any existing alterations within the buffer zone. And as you can see in the picture from the staging area there, the buffer zone itself is actually altered as a parking lot and or a roadway. And then the third provision that we believe also applies to this project is that the project overall is intended to provide a long-term net benefit for water quality improvements within My Comet Pond. So we are seeking some relief on those 2 provisions from the bylaw. And then finally, we have quite a bit of other permitting that we're in the process of working on. We had a MEPA review, an ENF, an expanded ENF, and then a mandatory EIR for both meeting the review thresholds as well as occurring within a local environmental justice community. We had our first MEPA public meeting last evening. And there will be a second meeting in person on May 3rd, which is next Friday. We're currently in our notice of intent with a simultaneous NISA project review. We're also filing a 401 water quality certification, a Chapter 91 permit. I believe the Chapter 91 has been submitted. The water quality certification is about to be submitted. We also require 404 authorization from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We will require a coastal zone consistency review from CZM. And then just prior to construction, we will also need to file for a NIPD's permit. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to the Commission for questions and discussion. Thank you. And did you want me to stop sharing? Because I can certainly do that.
Yes, please. Thank you all, and I'll ask that you provide the PowerPoint that was presented tonight to the staff so that it can be posted for public review. Linda, your hand's up first. Go ahead.
I just have nothing but positives to say about this. I think it's fascinating, and I think that the presentation was top notch. So I'm very pleased that this is actually happening here. It's long overdue. The only question I have is that we open our ponds regularly. This one, Sacajawea Comic Pond opens itself. Is what you're doing going to interfere with the ability to open these ponds once a year?
Yes, Vince, if you'd like to respond.
Yes, this will be a partial response, and Emma might wish to add more. Myacomet Pond has not been opened for a while, at least not with a permit or with any legal authority. It has been opened once about, was it 6 or so years ago, with a guy with a shovel. That happened, but no, this is not one of the great ponds that is opened. The other thing is that this will not really work to alter the water level, so that if we ever did choose to seek to open it in the future, it's going to be about the same. But the issue here isn't changing the water and trying to get more cleaner water into it. It's the muck in the pond at the bottom of the pond would keep, for want of a better term, reinfecting any water that did flow out. It would possibly be not the best to discharge that. Emma, do you want to add anything?
No, you said everything that I would have said, so thanks for clarifying this.
I know there's been, to you, Mr. Chairman, I know there's been some argument for some time now about not opening Myacomet Pond, preferably not with one person at midnight with a shovel. Because I know it was brackish and now it's basically fresh water, is it not?
That's correct.
And it changed the whole nature of the pond from when we were kids, when they did do the exchange. And it changed, I guess, what is actually inhabiting the pond. But you think it's better for the health not to open it now? I never got an answer to that from years ago.
If I may, I'll just say with respect, Linda, I hear what you're saying, but I don't really think it's necessarily relevant to the application before us. So the town of
Probably not, but I've
town of
always had
Nantucket
I got
Energy
a
staff-
forum here to answer it now.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have a meeting with you whenever if you just ask them.
But I think it's an exciting project, and I'm really happy to see it happening.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah, let's recognize Mark, please.
Thank you, Seth. I'm very supportive of the project. Was there any surprises when you did some sampling of the bottom in terms of what was in the organic matter, positive or negative?
Yeah, there were no surprises. The material has passed all of the necessary requirements chemically for permitting through water quality certification, and the organic portion that will likely be beneficially reused for topsoil or the like also is suitable from an agronomic perspective for that use. And overall, the results were consistent with the prior sampling done in 2017 as part of that water quality program.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
You have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also am very supportive of this project. It seems like quite an engineering feat. I'm just curious the distance that you're going to be pumping all the way to the wastewater treatment.
Chris, do you have that number at the top of your head?
It's about 3,000 feet.
Great, thank you.
And almost entirely across, or mostly across existing trackways.
Right. If it didn't come out clearly in the presentation, there were two alternatives for getting into the wastewater treatment plant. One, the most direct and shorter, has a short distance to traverse across existing vegetation, and the land bank will be conducting the vegetation survey that Amy mentioned for those rare plants that are there. And based on what that is found, the decision will be made whether to simply elevate the pipe on pipe racks above the ground surface and above the vegetation there, or to take the alternate longer route around to get in.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you again. Just a comment. Building a house on Nantucket is a challenging permit process. But you guys, that permit list was impressive, if nothing else. My God, I had no idea it was that much of a permitting nightmare to get the permit to do this. I don't want to say nightmare, but good for you guys for doing it.
We're in the optimist phase of this still, since we're just starting the permitting, so we're not going to go with nightmare yet.
And from the town side, I have to say kudos to Geosyntic and Horsley Witten Group. They have been phenomenal.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, we'll now recognize members of the public. RJ Turcott, I see you have your hand raised. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Engelborg, RJ Turcott on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I just wanted to reiterate what everyone else was saying. We're excited to see how this project proceeds because there are other bodies of water on Nantucket that this commission deals with semi-regularly that are internally loaded and impaired, and everyone should be watching very closely on how this proceeds because this may come up again, and so we're really excited to see how it goes. We've spent a lot of time collecting data on this, so great work, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else from the public. I'm assuming we have outstanding permitting requirements here, or do we have everything that we would need?
Excuse me. I believe we're waiting for NHESP.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So yes.
So in that case, we'll be looking to a continuance. Our next meeting date is May 9th. Would the applicants like to continue to May 9th?
We would.
Okay, great. So we'll continue this application to May 9th, and thank you all.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Yes, Will.
Just to quickly chime in, because I know we jumped all around and there's one more slight change to help you out before we get back to the NOIs.
Go ahead.
50 Wawanet is going to continue to May 9th for NHESP as well. But Mark should be here for
Okay.
the other one.
Sounds
In
good.
Berkeley.
So we will now go back to Nantucket Mountain LLC, 21 Berkeley Avenue, SC 48 3758, represented by Mark Ritz. Mark, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for accommodating my crazy travel today and bumping me to the end.
No worries.
Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 21 Berkeley. What you have before you this evening is an NOI requesting approval to construct a pool on a currently landscaped altered portion of the property. This property has quite a few wetland resource areas on it. There's a coastal beach, a coastal dune, several BVWs, which were delineated by Brian Madden of LEC. Land subject to coastal storm flowage. And in addition to all of those, we conducted a very thorough topo survey of the property to determine the extent of NEDP policy 92-1 coastal bank. So we have some coastal bank as well on the northern part of the property. All of the wetland resource areas are shown on the plan. And to simplify things, we combined all of the 25, 50, and 100-foot buffers into, we merged all the buffers instead of having 75 lines on the plan. After having done that, we chose a pool location which is entirely outside of any 50-foot buffer zone to any of the aforementioned resource areas. We anticipate any, standard pool conditions for a pool inside the 100, but we're inside the 100, but outside of the 50. We're also proposing some, pool mechanicals and the addition of a window well onto the west side of the house, also outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. And that's pretty much the extent of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we'll look towards the public. Any members of the public wishing to weigh in? Seeing none as well. For this one, Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Feels like the first time in a few, but yes, we actually do have everything for this one.
Mark Ritz, would you like to close?
Please.
Do we have a motion to close? Thank you, Mark. And seconded by Mike. By roll call vote. Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mark Beal,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelberg votes aye.
Thank
So
you.
that will move us into our next item on the agenda, which is Olmsted, 50 Walnut Road, SC 483760, also represented by Mark Ritz.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mark Ritz from Site Design representing the applicant at 50 Wallwinnet. This one, we are waiting for Heritage, so I can either present the project this evening or we can continue it to the next meeting at the commission's pleasure. If you want to hear it and get any questions out there, I can certainly present it now if that would be okay.
Mr. Chairman, you can't hear it now. There are two of us that are recused. Myself and
Oh.
Mike both work on this project. You only
Okay.
have 3 members left.
Thank you. So Linda Williams and Mike Mazzarelli are recused from this project, which will get us below the quorum limit. So I'd request that we wait to continue this till the next meeting.
In that case, please continue us till the 9th, is it?
Yes, May 9th. This will continue to May 9th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with all that jumping around, I believe we have completed the notice of intent section of our agenda. The only amended order of conditions we had was continued. That will conclude the public hearing. And we'll move on to public meeting, requests for determination of applicability. The only one we have here is 106 Squam Road LLC at 106 Squam Road, represented by Art Casparo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight with an application to construct a tertiary dwelling within the 100-foot buffer zone to an off-site vegetated wetland. The closest portion of the structure is about 65 feet away from the resource area. The project, the structure is proposed within existing lawn area. And we've included foundation details and don't believe that we need a separate waiver for separation to groundwater or any other waivers. So I'd be happy to take any questions that you have with the application.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, will the staff have a recommendation for us here?
Yep. I visited the site earlier this week. I was recommending a -3 that the buffer zone is present, but the project will not alter. And the box was checked whether additional Conservation Commission review. So there would also be a -6, no additional NCC review needed.
And then do we need a positive motion allowing for the work to proceed?
Sorry, I thought that was it, but if we do, I can grab that very quickly.
I think if the box is checked that they're looking to,
I'm just opening to
I
get
guess
the
they didn't check
number.
the box to get a boundary delineation, so I don't think we need it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
Maybe
was
not.
just -3 and -6. I don't know if Art, if you
Correct. We used, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
we used the record delineation given that it was on an abutting property and the distance from the structure, which was quite clear that we weren't right up against the 50.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to issue the RDA with the -3 and a -6? Thank you, Mike. Second, someone second. Thank you, Tim, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mark Beal,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
Okay, that will move us on in our agenda to minor modifications. We have Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 321 Pulpus Road, SC 483656, represented by Rachel Freeman.
Thank you again, Chair Engelberg. My name is Rachel Freeman. I'm representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank for a minor modification request at 321 Pulpus Road. We've been working on this property for some time now. At this point, we've removed a house. We have created a dirt parking area. We have redone some of the lawn areas, and there's an existing mound on the site that is adjacent to the, I'm gonna use the word pond or wetland that is still present and is shown here in blue. And we originally were planning to leave this and feature, but it's obviously, well, it looks like it's likely the spoils that were removed originally from the pond when the pond was hand dug or was dug by somebody on the site, and that they put it next to the pond. What we realized after looking at it is that there's potential safety hazard issues with this. We don't feel like we can adequately protect this mound such that children don't have the possibility of sort of climbing up it and tumbling down the backside. With that in mind, we were requesting permission to remove this and basically level that and, you know, just spread the soil evenly around the site. That is our minor modification request tonight.
Thank you. It looks like a great place for King of the Hill, but I understand that the safety concerns related to that. So, commissioners, any comments or questions? All right. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
No, the shades of your youth, Seth.
We liked the hill too, but then we looked at the hill with the pond. We didn't like the hill anymore.
Yes, I understand. So
it was a big hill.
Thank you, Linda. So is there a motion to issue the minor modification? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike, for the second. By roll call vote, Tim Brain.
I think we're being too protective of kids, but aye.
Mark Beal.
I'm pro kid, aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye, and I've had 8 of them in my house and 6 grandkids, so I'm pro kid.
And Seth Engelborg, aye.
Thank you very much.
I could definitely see my toddler tumbling into that pond and
if the
so that will yeah, thank you. So that will bring us to certificates of compliance. I believe we just have the one, which is the Sachem Trust, 8 Sachem Road, SE 483561, represented by Brian Madden. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi, how's it going, everyone? So Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants representing the applicant. This was an order issued in August 2022 for effectively the installation of 2 structures. It was a garage and a shed in the front part of the property and the garage out in the back. Relocation of the driveway, if you remember, this one was further to the west within the 25-foot buffer zone, and it was relocated further to the east to maximize the separation and the old driveway footprint was revegetated. The restoration plantings were installed last fall. I submitted some photographs to depict those areas, but everything's coming in nicely and well established. There was a proposed pool, a deck, and pergola area outside the 50-foot, but partially within the 100-foot that was installed as well. And everything is completed in substantial compliance. I did list the ongoing conditions. If you like, I can run through them or defer to Will, whatever your pleasure is.
We'll defer to Will, thank you.
Give me something to do.
So before we get to that, any questions or comments from commissioners? Will, have you had a chance to go out to the site?
Yep. Everything is in compliance. The revegetation area looks really good. Was there earlier this week. I do have 9 ongoing conditions, if we're ready for them.
Yes, please read the number and what it is.
All right. So we've got condition 19, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within jurisdiction of the commission. Condition 20, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. Condition 21, all chemical treatments shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. Condition 22, all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area. Condition 23, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool. The pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to. Condition 26, no fertilizer or other agricultural chemicals are allowed within the 50-foot buffer zone. Condition 28, the applicant shall provide photographs of all renaturalized areas on an annual basis. Which was provided. And I incorrectly listed the total number of conditions there.
I think it's 7.
It's 7. I did fake math.
So do we have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, and 28? Thank you, Mike, for making the motion, and Tim for the second. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Jim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg, aye.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
Brian. All right, so that will move us along in our agenda to orders of conditions. I know Will sent these out, but if you could also share on screen, that would be great.
Yep. Just make sure. All right, just making sure we only had 5 total. We're waiting on a lot of NHESP letters. So the first one will be for 39 Quays. I'll bring that up now.
Yes, Linda.
The only thing I've written down for this one was that we wanted a section on the stairs, because we wanted to put that in the file. That's all I had on my list.
Thank you. Let's just let Will go over it quickly beforehand, and then we can add that.
Yep. So I added
Question
an
through you,
additional.
Mr. Chair, first, before we keep going.
Yes.
I have a hard time reading white on black background.
Oh,
Can we go the other direction?
You will, can you change back to the light mode?
yeah,
Never seen it this color.
it automatically did this.
Isn't that weird?
I have my settings like this as well, but if you go to view and you hit switch modes from
There we go.
mode,
Found
there
it.
you go.
Cool.
So much better.
Yeah, no problem. It automatically did that. I kind of like it, but it's a personal thing.
It's the only time I have to wear glasses is when there's a black background and white lettering. That was the same thing in high school.
I got the sneaky contacts in.
All right, Will, go ahead.
All right. This order permits the installation of a set of beach access stairs as well as installation of a steel sheet bulkhead to support a failing timber bulkhead with associated landscaping and grading within Coastal Bank, Coastal Beach, and LSCSF. I did add an additional finding. The applicant shall provide a cross-section of the proposed beach stairs to staff for approval. I wasn't sure if that checked the box off for us or not. And I have condition 18 and 19 if we want to add anything else.
Do people feel comfortable with that being a finding, or do they want it in the condition list?
Yeah, that might make more sense actually.
Let's put it there. I mean, they said they were gonna do that, but
That
just
makes more
in the
sense.
condition list. And I would just say prior to the start of work. Other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, do we have a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Mark. Thanks for the balloons. And by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Jim Braid,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye, and I have no idea where those balloons came from. Computers.
Just,
Makes
you
us
know, it's
happy.
technology. I'm in favor.
Thank you, Linda. Seth Engelberg votes aye. And that will move us on.
Right. Our next one is 135 Wawanet. Excuse me as I quickly fix this. This order permits the construction of an elevated walkway, shed, deck, and driveway within LSCSF Barrier Beach, Coastal Dune, vegetated wetland, and their respective buffer zones. Waivers are required for this project. We had condition 18 and 19, and then condition 20 that all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the code of the town of Nantucket. And 21, all refueling shall take place greater than 50 feet from the resource areas. Then we had our waiver request to allow activity within the vegetated wetland resource area and 25-foot buffer zones. Structures within the 50-foot and shed pilings within 2 feet vertically of estimated seasonal high groundwater. There's an existing platform with HVAC units and an outdoor shower. The applicant is also seeking a waiver for, given the constraints of the lot. It was the only appropriate location. Commission finds that the change from at-grade boardwalks to an elevated walkway will provide a long-term net benefit and that the existing platform will not adversely impact the resource areas and therefore grants a waiver under section 393F, 3A, and C of the Nantucket Wetland Protection Regulations for the project as proposed. Sorry, I really struggled through that.
Members of the commission, comments or questions? I have one addition. I think we should add that all machinery be stored outside the resource areas.
You want greater than 50 feet from the resource areas?
Sure. Anything else? Seeing not, is there a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That will move us on.
All right, and that moves us on to rear Woodbury Lane. I believe in the version I sent out, I still had the wrong waiver attached. I fixed that. Sort of permits the invasive species management of Phragmites as well as replanting of indigenous vegetation within bordering vegetated wetland. Waivers are required for the project. 18 and 19, then condition 20, all restoration plantings are to be native species with no cultivars.
Go down and get one of the larger,
What's up?
I think that was a mistake.
Oh, I
Yeah,
got
keep
confused.
going.
In 21, the quantity and specific type of herbicide will be reported in writing to the commission on an annual basis. Any herbicide shall be applied by a licensed applicator. And then waivers are required to 390-18B1 that proposed projects which are not water dependent shall maintain at least a 25-foot natural undisturbed area adjacent to a bordering vegetated wetland. There's a typo in there. The commission finds that proactive management of invasive species serves to have a long-term net benefit to a resource area. Therefore, the commission grants a waiver under 390-29C of the Town of Nantucket Wetlands Regulations, which is our invasive species management specific waiver.
Any comments, questions, concerns from commission members? I don't believe so. Do we have a motion to issue the order of conditions as drafted? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tim, for the second. And by roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. And Will, you can do the next one.
All right. We've got the Lily Pond Park. I got a ... that's ominous. Okay, there we go. This order permits the implementation of an invasive species management and control program for Lily Pond Park within bordering vegetated wetland and its associated buffer zones. A waiver is required for the project as proposed. We have conditions 18 and 19 and condition 20 that the quantity and specific type of herbicides used will be reported in writing to the commission on an annual basis. Any herbicide shall be applied by a licensed applicator. And then similarly to our last permit, see if I have the same typos in here, I'll fix them. Waivers are required to 390-18B1 that proposed projects which are not water dependent shall maintain at least a 25-foot natural undisturbed area adjacent to a bordering vegetated wetland. The commission finds that proactive management of invasive species serves to have a long-term net benefit to a given resource area. Therefore, the commission grants a waiver under 390-29C of the Town of Nantucket Wetlands Regulations.
Comments from commissioners? I think with these invasive restoration projects, we should require pre and post photo monitoring for all of them.
I do not disagree. Sorry, I said that in my head and not out loud. I may have something written up. Let me see. I thought I had one already written up, but I don't. We'll say how about a monitoring report containing photographs pre and post treatment shall be submitted on a yearly basis until issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Perfect.
All right.
And after you've drafted that, just show it on the screen, please.
Oh, yep. Let me bring that up now. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Monitoring report shall be submitted to the commission on an annual basis containing photographs of all treatment areas pre and post. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Both pre and post management?
Does that sound okay to commissioners? Okay, do we have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance as amended? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg, aye. And I think we have one more after that.
Yes, we do. 10 easy. This will be our last one. All right, and this was pretty simple. We did questionably maybe have the ability to take the waiver off of this one.
My opinion is if it's outside the 25-foot buffer, we should take out the waiver, or if we want to cover our tracks and be safe, only put the B waiver in there that talks about the vehicular, semi-public and public roadways, but not to add the waiver A for clarification purposes.
I mean, I do agree that under our current regulations, I think this technically does not need the waiver. So if we want to just take it off, if everybody's in agreement.
Commissioners, what are your thoughts? All right, please remove it. And say waivers are not required for this project in the permit overview.
Yep.
And with those changes, do we have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance as amended? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Who wants to second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Linda. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg, aye. And thank you, Will. That will conclude our orders of conditions portion of the agenda. And it will move us into extension of order. We have Frost Daisy Field Trust at 74 Matticat Road, SC 48 35 48. represented by Mark Ritz. And we also have Frost Daisy Field Trust 76 Matticat Road, SE 483459, represented by Mark Ritz. My intent is to take these together if possible.
You may.
Go ahead, Mark.
Good evening. Just one quick question. Was there no order for 21 Berkeley?
We did close 21 Berkeley. So let's handle these extensions and then we'll go back to that.
Okay, no problem. Mark Ritz representing the applicant at 74 and 76 Matticat Road. These are two orders of conditions. This was part of a 4-lot subdivision. 2 of the lots were already built. These are the 2 lots between the built lots. Some work has started. There was some clearing, there was some stripping of surface material, but construction has not substantially started. There were some family health issues that caused some delay, and the applicant would just like to extend the orders to be able to complete the work. All structures are outside the 50. This was part of a natural heritage application a few years back, and there was actually an area that was demarcated for habitat that was to be left untouched behind all 4 properties. Everything is going to proceed as previously proposed. We're just asking for more time to finish the work. That's pretty much it. I'll be happy to answer any questions. It's the same for both lots.
Commissioners, anything? All right. Do we have a motion to issue the 3-year extensions for both 74 and 76 Matticat Road? Thank you, Tim, for making the motion. Someone want to second it? Mike, thank you. By roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
And Seth Engelborg, aye. And we'll go back and do the order of conditions for Nantucket Mountain LLC, 21 Berkeley Ave, SE 483758. Will, do you have that drafted?
Yes, I do. Mark, thanks for catching that. I had forgot to move it over to my closed folder with all that jumping around. All right, so 21 Berkeley, this order permits the construction of a pool, patio, shed, and window well with associated landscaping and grading within buffer zone to coastal bank and bordering vegetated wetlands. Waivers are not required. We had conditions 18 and 19, and then condition 20 that all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the code of the town of Nantucket. 21, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the commission's jurisdiction. 22, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. 23, all chemical treatments shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. 24, the applicant shall provide contact information for the company maintaining the pool. The pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to. 25, given the topography of the site, any pool draining that needs to take place shall be pumped by truck and disposed of properly at the wastewater treatment facility or be in compliance with chapter 361 of the code of the town of Nantucket. No waiver.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to issue the order of conditions as drafted? Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mark. By roll call vote. Mark Beal.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
And Seth Engelborg, aye. And that will actually conclude orders of conditions this time and take us into other business. First up on other business is approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes, sets of minutes, one from February 15th, 2024, and one from February 22nd, 2024. Have members had a chance to review those minutes? Does anyone have any changes or concerns about the minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to accept those minutes as drafted? Thank you, Mark, for making the motion. Thank you, Mike, for the second. By roll call vote. Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Braden,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg, aye. And that will move us on to monitoring reports. I'm aware that we have at least one monitoring report, a report from Capon Pond that's in the packet. And if anyone has questions related to that, you can ask Will, and he'll put you in touch with the project representatives. And next is enforcement actions or potential enforcement actions. Will, do we have anything on that?
I have nothing, but I think I'm going to have some stuff next meeting, not to get everybody all excited, but
All right, we'll wait till then. So reports, Crack, Tim, do you have a report for us?
Yeah, quickly, Crack invited some town regulatory board leaders to discuss how the CRP might better be integrated into regulations and processes. Seth was there and represented Concom quite eloquently and explained the limitations of Concom to take sea level rise into account in Concom's decision, it was a very interesting discussion, and it ended up where everybody agreed they should meet again and work on how sea level rise should be taken into account in the regulatory and into the regulations of these departments. So I thought it was pretty productive.
Thank you. Just to clarify, by limitation, I was discussing kind of how our permitting process, deals with applications on hand and the regulations before us, whereas the CRP deals with the long-term future of Nantucket, and it can sometimes be hard to constrain applications based on activities that will be taking place very far into the future, even though some of the regulatory updates that we're doing certainly will be beneficial for coastal resiliency.
As I said, eloquent.
Thank you. So CPC, that's Mark.
Yep, nothing to report.
Okay. NP need to see is me. We had a meeting this week, but I don't think there's anything germane to the Concom. And the Harbor Plan Update Committee, Linda?
We are still slogging. We had Sheila there, the harbor master. We're slogging through that harbor and waterways section, which is probably the most important section. So we were working through it with Sheila, and we're going to continue to work with Sheila, and we're going to continue to go through that section. So we're really mostly in what, Seth, 2/3 of the way through it so far.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and we're still going every 2 weeks.
And offshore wind work group is Joe, who's not here, but that does remind me, there was some testimony at this past NPDC meeting about offshore wind. You probably saw things in the media about it. I don't think the testimony that was presented is necessarily relevant for the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, but I did mention in those hearings when people asked, why town officials weren't, I guess, holding these wind projects up to snuff and asking them to do their due diligence from the environmental review perspective. I did mention the several recent offshore export cable permitting projects that we've heard here at the Concom related to offshore wind that I think were very robust reviews. So that's that. All right. Commissioners' comments. Anyone have a
Great meeting,
commissioner's
Mr.
comment?
Chairman. I got to run, but great meeting. Very well
Thank you.
run.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Linda. Have a good night.
Good meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, and lastly, administrator staff reports.
I always get to be the cherry on top. It's nice. Real quick, thanks for a great meeting. I know we had like some last minute changes today. Good job, Seth, and everything, with SBPF and some jumping all over the place. We got it done. Also, slightly personal note, but also work. I am moving back to the island in about a week. I'll be back next weekend, so I very much look forward to seeing all of your faces in real life more often. And it's going to be super nice to not be cramming all my site visits into a day or two a week. There's been a lot of very speedy Will running around pulling his hair out. So it's going to be nice. Looking forward to that.
And we want him back in the office desperately.
And that's it.
All right, thank you. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Mike, thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Tim. By roll call vote, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
and Seth Engelborg. Aye. Thank you all for a good meeting and hope you have a good night.
Well done, Seth.
Yeah, really good stuff.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you, Charles. If you can hear me, we're done.